Welcome back, everyone, to the VCS English. I didn't stutter that time. It's actually incredible. To the VCS. Slowly getting back into the swing of things. I'm still Milky Cyril, still joined by Rebel Fox, but we have two new teams entering onto the rift for our second series of the day. Team Wales facing off against Saigon Buffalo. Saigon Buffalo joint 7th or joint 6th in the standings, but it's cooler to say joint 7th. Whereas whereas Team Wales are currently sitting 4th in the standings. Should have a good game, though, ahead of us as Saigon Buffalo looking to start to ramp up in this spring split.
Not to mention, we've seen both these teams kind of walk in a handful of different players. So one of the biggest, I think, storylines is Saigon Buffalo. BJ's been the starter for a good amount of time, and now all of a sudden, Guri steps into the roster, which is a little bit of a difference. If I recall, they won their most recent series in a 2-0 over top of Team Flash, which is obviously pretty impressive after what we saw in the previous series, with Guri in the lineup, which is one thing to kind of make mention of. For the side of Wales, Wales has tried out, they haven't tried out any of the roster yet. They're sticking with what they know. Right? It's Glory, Killer Queen as a core, and then you got Vit and B, which has become one of our favorite bot lanes. I think they've been really electrifying on the bottom side of the map, and Nagia as well as this kind of anchor to the top lane more than anything else. And this is, again, of all the rosters right now, we've had, I think every single roster except for Flash and Wales have tried at least one player that is not on their standard starting 5, which is insane to think about. And Gam, my bad. Gam also has not done that yet.
Gam snowballing at the top at 5-0. And to be honest, Rebel, right, as much as I say we like to be impartial sometimes, I know you definitely want Saigon Buffalo to win, so we get our Exodia of loads of teams on 2 wins and 3 losses heading into week 4 of the split. Although things might change after SBTC against GAM and Cerberus against Team Secret tomorrow morning. Let's talk about this a little bit more analytically, though, right? Mm-hmm. Saigon Buffalo, what do you think's really been holding them back so far this split?
I talked about it the last time that I had seen them, and part of that is I feel like they are currently underperforming in the top lane. I feel like Hosbet has not had the greatest of splits, and in this split, especially in this day and age in the VCS, it feels like our top laners are nuts, right? Like Kiaya is really good. Pun has been playing out of his mind, and then you also have Enper and Nagia, and you've got like Hero and even Yashino, who's performing really, really well. Like there's probably 5-6 top laners that are currently playing better than Hosbet easily inside of the split, which is not something that usually holds up for very long. That sometimes happens with Hosbet. Hosbet just kind of falls asleep and then wakes up at some point. But the other thing is that I think they were running into a problem with BJ that they are running into it was resource allocation where they just didn't have enough resources for everybody to play the way that they wanted to. Even if Hosbet is taking this like tank role, exclusively playing like Ornn and Sion and Cassante and these like tank champions that you don't really care about putting resources into, even through that, it feels like they're not having enough resource to kind of index everywhere they wanted to, which is maybe why they brought Guri in for some capacity. But I haven't seen that solution work out tremendously yet. So I'm waiting to see whether or not that experiment's going to turn out for them. But I think figuring out how it is that they can continue to kind of run things from that department is the trick to Saigon turning the split around so far.
And it's kind of crazy because when we remember back to summer 2022, BJ was, I think most of us would agree, the best jungler in the VCS split. The only one coming close would have been probably Levi, but I think BJ had a little bit of an edge over him. And now heading into 2023 spring, BJ just seemingly struggling a little bit or just not fitting in with Saigon Buffalo being swapped out, and that's going to hit his confidence as well. And we still have to say this is a very young team for Saigon Buffalo. We've been saying that for the last couple of years, but they are still ridiculously young and still have a long future ahead of them.
They do. There's a lot of players that are still stepping into the roles, I think, primarily, but I don't know how much. The thing is about Saigon Buffalo is this team almost nearly fell apart. Apparently, there was some talks about how like they barely stayed together. When Saigon Buffalo came back, obviously Ren has left, which was a big part of why the Saigon roster was such an electrifying one. Was because their early game plans, their drafting was just so transcendent compared to other teams that it made a very big difference. Now, again. Also, when they're on and they're having fun and they're enjoying, this is one of the most fun teams to watch in the entire league. But that, like, we haven't seen it super often inside of this split. So there's that to kind of talk about, which is something I'm looking for. Now, Wales, on the other hand, Wales has been a surprise, I think, in a split. I think a lot of us easily could have seen Wales being a bottom half team, and yet here they are kind of brawling with SBTC and Team Secret and some of these other rosters for a little bit of water at the top. Right now they're 2-2, right? But they beat SPTC, which is the third place team. They've only lost to Gam and Cerberus, who currently sit at 1-2 in the standings. They've only lost to the top 2 teams. You want to talk about strength of schedule? They've played the top 3 teams, and they've only lost to the top 2, which is insane to think about. So Wales, if they take a win here over Saigon Buffalo, could legitimately establish themselves as being the third best team in the split. And especially after the loss from SPTC, if they win here, they actually have the tiebreaker and they would become the third best team.
I would just like to clarify, you mentioned a lot of us saw Wales being at the bottom of the split. I don't know who you are talking to, Rebel, but I'm chatting with Marby. We're on the Wales hype train. We always knew that they were going to be really strong, and that's despite Wales not getting Uji as well, who we thought would be playing with Team Wales. We've been seeing for Wales both Vit and Harky. But B has been a big driving force. Killer Queen has been playing well. Nagia too. We are heading, though, into picks and bans for Game 1 between Saigon Buffalo against Team Wales. 2 mammals clashing on the rift, and Saigon Buffalo banning away so many ADCs, just like we saw in our first series of the day.
One of the biggest things to note, I think, is that I feel that Wales has had a really well-established meta. They are understanding what they want to play. They've got a bunch of kind of champions that they play out of the mid lane. I think they played more mid lane champions than any other team so far in the split. But one of the biggest things is B is playing exclusively ranged champions, which I think is a really awesome thing. They're playing a tremendous amount of like melee champions in the jungle that are good at counter jungling. One of the biggest things that's worked for them is Wukong. Not a lot of other teams have really made the pick work as well as Killer Queen has here on this roster. So that is something to pay attention to. Do notice that Guri is in once again. It's not BJ, which is still surprising to me because I've heard nothing but praise for BJ for a long time, especially from people inside the VCS. So I'm really astonished that this is the decision that they've decided to go with and say, hey, we're going to put some chips into Guri here.
First pick Xayah. This is not something I've seen in
like
a long time. Team Wales, though, going to answer. Oh, yes, we get Killer Queen's Lee Sin. We get some Vit Varus as well. Let's be honest, I'm just excited about the Lee Sin.
The Lee Sin has not won yet. I will throw that little kind of wrench into things. Not for Killer Queen. Killer Queen has played it twice and he didn't win either game. Now again, that was against Levi and that was also against Ego. So we do have those problems to talk about a little bit. So again, he's only won on Wukong, and then he also won a game of Maokai as well, which is actually probably the worst performance he's had on any of his wins. So talking about Killer Queen, he's played a lot more Invadia style. He played Lee Sin a lot, he's played Wukong a lot, and he likes hand checking the opposing jungler, which is something to make mention of. That is the style that Killer Queen opts for. Here against Guri, I think it works in every circumstance where Guri's not playing a ganking jungler, and thrusting Guri onto a ganking jungler is not the way that Saigon Buffalo has done well. At least not, in my opinion, that's not the strategy you want to employ with Guri because he is a farming jungler, but here it might be necessary just to make sure that BJ doesn't go run him down with Lee Sin.
Well, it is a ganking jungler locked in for Guri with the Sejuani, the Nautilus to complete the Saigon Buffalo bottom lane. And we were talking about in the previous series, who is the best Nautilus in the VCS? Is it Taki or was it maybe Ron OP? I think Taki has been always incredibly good on the Nautilus, and the Annie is open and will get locked in for Wales and Glory.
And one of the biggest benefits, I think, to playing on this Wales roster is that so far B has played like exclusively range champions, which is awesome to me. Like, it's a very rare thing to see like supports pick up range champions this much. B has been abusing the hell out of them this split. Has Ashe, has Caitlyn, has Annie, has Nami, has Belveth, obviously, and then has the Nautilus as well. So has the champion pool kind of fleshed out. And the Annie's only been played the one time, but it can flex into bot lane, which is the important bit of information here. That if you're playing the Nautilus, you have to worry that Annie's going to get flexed down into bot side alongside the Varus if you don't have the right kind of bearings to deal with it. So do be prepared for that it could be flexed if you're not super careful. So if they pick top lane, they're not sure where the Annie's going to go. If they pick a solo lane or if they pick a support or a mid lane or whatever it might be, they're going to know where that's going, but they will get an advantageous position for Hosmed in the top lane. And the thing we haven't talked about either, Sejuani could be shifted for Hosmed top if you really want to try to give Guri a better matchup in the right circumstance, if they have something prepared for the Lee Sin. And so they might want to suss that out as well. Those are the two avenues here. Either you're protecting the Annie flex into support, or you're going to try to get a superior pick for the top lane matchup to make sure that the Sejuani can't be flexed there.
Well, clearly they want that flexibility for the Annie as they are hovering this Renekton for Nagia. Both the Jax and the Fiora banned away by the side of Saigon Buffalo, and the Croc is indeed locked in.
It actually makes a lot of sense because this is a double flex. This could be a mid laner or a top laner, which means that the Annie could be mid lane or bot lane. So we haven't had a guarantee of where anything is going quite yet. So the Renekton being left up, while I think it is punishable in some circumstances, if you double down on champions that beat Renekton, or at least are do fine into Renekton, this could be okay. Like in terms of just like against that one pick, but then you're not dealing with the Annie, you're not dealing with whatever pick they're going to be coming for. And so I like this from Team Wales. I loved this draft coming out. Again, it's Killer Queen strategy, the Annie flex, the ability to grab Varus early, and again, this kind of massive play. And again, it's the Elise that ends up popping up. So it was the flex of the Sejuani to the top lane that they didn't quite get a bunch of information on. Now they get a chance to pick.
The Braum is being hovered. And, I mean, to be honest, not what I was expecting when you've got your R5 pick for support, but Braum locked in will mean that Annie will be heading into the mid lane, and the Renekton will be heading top. Aside and Buffalo complete their composition with an Elise. Wait, what?
Yes. It means it's a Cassandra mid lane. Or a Sejuani mid lane. It could be Sejuani mid lane.
No. What?
What do you mean?
I didn't. What are we watching, Rebel?
Yeah, the you're talking about right now, all of the chips for Saigon Buffalo are actually in the Xayah basket, which means the Shogun has 100% of their damage. Again, I'm not sure whether it's going to end up being Cassandra in the mid lane or Sejuani in the mid lane. I feel like Froggy's got both those champions. We talked about him having a pretty solid champion pool, and there's no carry jungler. I feel like they should have gone for Talia if they were going to do something like this. I don't remember if it was banned. I forgot to look for it, and I apologize for that if that's the case. But that's been the carry that Guri has gone to again and again, which would have made sense to fill in some of the damage gap. Now you've got Elise, which is pure early game, playing for a Cassandra and a Sejuani solo lane, almost certainly.
So I was going to say, I've been thrown by this because while all of the picks was happening, I was looking over to my second monitor and I was thinking about flexibility for Wales. I was just seeing how much has Varus mid been played. I was going to bring up, could we maybe see the Varus heading mid lane and then a different ADC getting picked up? I look back and then I see Elise. I'm like, oh, cool, Elise jungle. And then I remember the Sejuani. So I'm still kind of playing mental catch up to work out what exactly has happened, where everything is going. Rebel, I do have to ask you, I'm not going to ask you, the standard question of who do you think is going to win the game? I'm going to ask you, who do you think has a better draft?
I do not like compositions with solo carries. In this particular case, it's Xayah, and Xayah's fine, but you have to worry that there's going to be too much in front of Xayah to have to deal with. Now, out of fairness, there's no absolute pure tank here, right? Like, there isn't a Sejuani, there isn't a Sejuani, there isn't a Cassandra, there isn't a Scion or something that's going to be difficult to kind of rip through. So Shogun, if you are properly kind of fed in the beginning of the game, is going to be in an all right position. The problem, this is one thing I don't like. So Vit has gone for lethal tempo. This has been a good pick for Xayah for a couple of patches now. Like the last two patches, Xayah has been good into Varus when they're both going lethal tempo because the early game is just better for Xayah. And then you scale okay because you still have abilities that can execute. Your damage to me comes out faster as Xayah because you have more kind of direct on hit, even though Varus is going to be building literal on hit. Like the amount of damage Xayah is doing per auto attack and getting through damage and then also with the feather pull ends up over capitalizing compared to what Varus can do, which is why I prefer Varus to either go Halo Blades to try to take advantage of the laning phase, or you go for lethality and you just you take a Comet, you take Halo Blades, whichever one you go for. And especially with Braum, stacking that passive is really, really important. It helps you against the Nautilus matchup, which is why you took the Braum in the first place, because it means Nautilus can't come hooking in, or you're just going to get stunned up, you're going to get wrecked on the backside of the fight, and then everything's going to go poorly for you. But that's not going to be the case. Instead, there is a little bit of wiggle room here for Shogun and Taki that's allotted because Vit's going to be playing for later gameplay.
Both junglers starting on their red side of the map, and Guri starting on his Raptor. So I'm wondering if we're going to see three camps on the bottom side into maybe a lane gank through the bottom lane and try and find an early kill onto either Vit or B.
Yeah. Okay. It is a Comet Sejuani top lane. This is like... I know this is probably something that it happens, but it just, I don't know. This doesn't seem like a Hosmid thing. Like Hosmid,
no.
I've never seen Hosmid shy away from doing something that's like normal, and this feels like it's free poke more than anything else. And he's already been bullied out at the beginning of the laning phase. And again, Hosmid's split has not been great so far, and it really sucks because he's been one of our favorite players for a long time. He's been a top laner for a long time. Now getting wrapped around by Killer Queen.
Well, we know how aggressive Killer Queen loves to be. We know how proficient he is on the Lee Sin, one of the best Lee Sins in VCS and now looking towards Hazmed, who is slightly under level, does hit level 3. Does the Team Whale topside have the damage flash away from Nagia? Hazmed
No way.
Too many tower shots. Only an execute though, so unlucky for Hazmed. He only gets 1 kill, but still a fantastic start for the Saigon Buffalo top lane.
How in the world did that bag get fumbled so hard by Team Wales? What in the world? You know what's even worse about that is the only reason Hazmed didn't get that kill is because there is a shield that the safeguard came down on Lee Sin and blocked the auto damage because you'll see it at the back end of this play. I'm almost 100% sure Hazmed autoed Killer Queen, but it got blocked by safeguard's damage, and that's the only reason you get a double kill here. Yeah, look at this. Yeah, you just weren't ready. Okay, right here. No, okay, yeah, he did not. I thought there was an auto that came through and it got blocked by
safeguard. I think the damage onto the shield would still count because you're removing part of the shield.
That's not usually how it works in the game, but I could be wrong about that. Not usually, yeah. I'm not sure. One way or another, it doesn't matter because he didn't auto anyway. But somehow Hazmed, we were just flaming him, and I reverse caster cursed him by getting him a win in that situation. You're welcome, Hazmed. It was intentional.
Yeah. Also, we talk about Hazmed champions. We usually think about Hazmed, Aatrox, Akali, Kennen, not
Vayne.
the kind of tank champions. Vayne, yes. Oh my god, his Vayne at MSI. Oh, beautiful. They did not see that one coming. And now Guri is going to show Team Wales, this is how you do a topside gank. And wouldn't it be hilarious if Nagia gets 2 kills?
Wouldn't it? Yes, it would. But it's not going to be the case. Instead, Guri's just going to walk out. Knows that the camp is going to be spawning soon, but probably isn't going to stick around long enough to try to find anything else. That was a decent bit of a reprieve. Okay, solid. B has to pop the shield just to make sure there's nothing else to come out. And again, to me, the early game wasn't ever going to be super easy because, again, I've loved the Xayah pick into the Varus. I feel like this is the #1 response you can make in terms of meta champions in the bot lane right now. We also have yet to talk about the fact that it is K'Sante mid lane, which I'm sure has not been played, but I think this might be our first one in the VCS. It's one of the first ones I've seen in a major region so far.
I will do some quick stat checking. It has had 3 games in the mid lane.
Were they all against Annie? I will ask that question.
Were they all against Annie? It was once played in the LCK by Chovy, actually.
Unsurprising.
Unsurprising. While you talk for a bit, let me find some stats for you.
Sure, I'll let you go onto the single webpage that all of us use to find the only stats that matter, while I refer to the reason why I asked that, which is that Annie has lockdown and has some decent damage. Not enough damage to kill K'Sante, and also he has a way to be uninterrupted by CC in any capacity. So it's similar to Ornn. The difference is he's a more modern champion, has a lot more brawling power, and to me fits what Froggy would want to do if Froggy decides to go roaming at any point in this game.
It was not. It was played against Gragas, Azir, and Syndra.
Okay. Now the Syndra makes a lot of sense. I don't know about the Gragas. I think also actually makes a lot of sense too. The Azir doesn't make as much sense to me, so maybe that was a little bit of an anecdote kind of usage more than anything else. But anybody that's got this like insane lockdown that you can just unstoppable through in the same way that Ornn used to do, it actually makes a lot of sense to grab him because he kind of closes down the laning phase. You can't kill him. It's difficult to gank, not easy to set up any CC towards. And again, it gives you this really kind of brawly champion to walk into the mid game with right out of mid lane, which again, Saigon's old ways were, hey, let's roam as fast as possible with Froggy, let's jump waves, and let's just go fight. And especially alongside an Elise, could actually be a really menacing idea in the right circumstance if it's able to be set up properly.
I feel like this game is rather similar to the first game that we saw between Flash and SBTC, with Killer Queen having, just like we saw from Spot, a bit of a failed gank that put him really far behind. And that's, well, the situation that Killer Queen's in, right? 20 CS down on Guri's Elise, although in the SBTC game, it was actually Spot playing the Elise that time.
And it was. I'm looking over the map. Sorry.
You're looking over the map.
I'm looking over the map. Huh? What'd you say, both?
Both. Yeah, we're both looking over the map.
We're both looking over the map. Yeah, so when I was looking at the mini-map, my apologies. Perhaps
you're looking at the mini-map.
Yeah, I always look at the mini-map. That's what you're supposed to do.
No, I don't. That's why I struggle in solo queue most of the time, to be honest.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Anyway, the reason I'm looking over the map is because I'm trying to figure out what this pathing is from Guri, because there's a large camp discrepancy, for one thing, between Killer Queen and between Guri right now, as Guri hits level 6 and is up like 20 farm over top. So it's like 5 full camps over top of Killer Queen that currently leads by Guri. Hasn't had the same kind of like early game impact necessarily, because there's been no gank attempt whatsoever. Killer Queen.
Well, I mean, Killer Queen had impact.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was a good impact.
I at no point did I say it was good impact. Also, that is a blasting one for Hosmet in the top lane, by the way. So this is a very quick demonic, most likely.
I was going to bring this up because this is not a full tank Sejuani, although demonic kind of fits in with the weird bruiser build that Sejuani takes these days. Killer Queen is going to look towards another gank to the top side, but now Hosmet has an ultimate. I'm going to be honest, I don't think this one would work out if they did go for it.
I highly doubt it as well, and I think they're starting to doubt themselves too, because they're not forcing it in any capacity. Nagia might try to catch the wave super high here to make sure that Killer Queen has access to it. I think Hosmet's a little privy to this though, so there's that. They got a Rift Herald as a possibility, but Guri has showed up at the perfect time, and so has Taki. Taki has roamed up from bottom lane. In fact, actually everybody's kind of up here, including Vit was like halfway up here before he decided to turn it and respond to the Xayah that's pushing on the bottom side. So there's just 4 members from both teams hanging out on the top side of the river trying to shut out this Rift Herald, which has been dragged away. It's now just going to be sitting here. Oh.
Killer Queen and Nagia behind. The Dominus has been used. They're looking for Guri, going to dash away. Locked down, though, by Nagia. Flash in pursuit. Guri is low, and Glory will pick up Team Wales' first kill of the game. And now they can look towards the Rift Herald.
I have absolutely no clue who told Guri that that was a good idea. That was not sliding. The thing is, they knew B was on top side of the map. They knew Glory was able to step off wave. They knew Killer Queen and Nagia were out of top side, but they were on top side, right? Like all of it. Well, the only person they didn't have tracking on was Killer Queen, right? Which I think they were all poking around the Rift Herald anyway. So Guri, like, what are you walking into the river for? Like, why are you going there?
In fairness, Guri did get 3 flashes out of Team Wales.
That is true. It was a lot of flash. It was actually a really good escape attempt, to be quite honest. And if it weren't for Nagia being able to kind of utilize that flash, and honestly, look at Nagia's health bar, look at like Killer Queen's health bar. In a right fight, there might have been a legitimate chance at a turn. It still is just a questionable decision, to say the least, to be like, okay, Guri, why are we going for the Rift Herald anyway?
Oh, that's a really nice cocoon. Glory flipped into Saigon Buffalo's waiting arms, and a second kill of the game for the Buffaloes.
Yeah, it's really funny because Froggy has had like these weird champions that have been thrown in. You think of him as like old school Galio player, and then you had like the Zac mid lane that he popped out at Worlds as well, like, which was something that like they had been doing in the LEC for a decent amount of time.
Caps tried to copy him recently as well.
Yeah, Caps also had done it. I was gonna say I think Caps has tried it as well, which was a pretty cool thing. And the fact that Froggy is making this tank champion work in the mid lane. I mean, look at this. Look at this guy. It's crazy.
I mean, we know Froggy for the likes of his Kane, some other crazy stuff that he's played. I think it's Nautilus. Really nice play. Just flips into the cocoon. And a second kill for Saigon Buffalo. Team Wales now looking to try to get some vision over the bottom side of the map for the second Drake of the game, which will be an Ocean Drake. And this time we might see Vit and Shogun having some impact in a potential skirmish.
They very much might. It is... Okay, Gale Force is completed now also for Shogun, which is kind of a cool thing. He has the ability to reposition feathers and things like that. It is a Rod of Ages that comes out for Hosmet. It's not a Demonic Rush, which is, again, it's not crazy. I haven't personally seen a whole bunch of like the Rod of Ages Sejuani. I get the idea behind it. There's some decent scalings on your abilities. Having the Rod of Ages is a really good way to remain tanky in fights by just having a bunch of bulk, having a bunch of mana, having good sustain for yourself, all that type of stuff. I haven't seen it because I don't know that the scaling is going to be good enough to actually warrant it. But in fairness, Hosmet was kind of hitting pretty hard with just a blasting wand. So maybe this is some dark tech that's being brought out by the top laner SGB.
Guri and Darky getting river control for Saigon Buffalo. Froggy making his way down. Killer Queen and B just hovering around, and Vit might now be dead because he's going to have 3 members of Saigon Buffalo collapsing onto him. No way out for Vit. Forced to cleanse, forced to flash, but no way out as the Featherstorm will pick up the kill. Meanwhile, though, Team Wales have found an angle onto Froggy. Froggy, though, very tanky on this Cassante, will survive for a while, burning down, but still alive. And Team Wales are forced to retreat as the rest of Saigon Buffalo join into the fray.
Okay. That's something else. It was crazy. Killer Queen actually kicked Froggy out of the fight with like 200 health left. I don't know if he thought that the execute was going to come through. Out of fairness, Froggy kind of jumped right back in because he's like, I want the smoke. I want the Jack Show to keep healing me. I want to be able to live forever and buy time for everybody else. But an insane set of plays from Wales where they just have not been able to find sticking power basically anywhere. This was the bot side play. Vit wanted to try to help out in some capacity. He probably needed to take a slightly different pathing because there was a lot of risk in walking into the dark side of the jungle with no kind of understanding where anybody is. The rest of the team then jumps on this tank and they just can't kill him. So again, it's Wales getting punished, losing 2 dragons at the beginning of this one.
And let's not forget, Vit loses both of his summoner spells as well. So if Saigon Buffalo want to look for a dive, with Taki having a depth charge, with Guri on this Elise, Vit is going to be extremely susceptible.
They will. Easy enough. Again, there's still like the threat that like not tons of damage is coming through, but again with Jack Show on your Cassante, that's going to be a decent damage self. And again, if it's AP Sejuani, I'm not familiar with the amount of damage that this champion is able to legitimately put out. So it's possible that could at least break some of the damage threshold that they're going to be missing from having a more standard mid laner, a more standard damaging top laner, which is interesting. And again, Saigon Buffalo, even without Ren, living up to the name of being the super creative kind of drafting and gameplay team.
I think this just fits in with Harsmed, right? We were talking about his champion pool and how tanks don't seem to fit in. So Harsmed finding a way to pick the tank champion, but make it Harsmed-esque.
Make it Harsmed-esque to grab a cooldown reduction and AP and all these other really, really fun things. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. This has been a game that's been really good for Guri. Guri has, again, that one weird play around the Rift Herald. I think I'm willing to apologize because of the diff that's going on in the jungle right now. It's Diffy in the Jiffy, if you will, with a 30 CS advantage of the Elise over top of the Lee Sin. Lee Sin is not spiking. Not going to have Gore Drinker anytime soon. Probably has less pressure in this game. Yes, you can kick Sejuani. Yes, you can kick Cassante, but like, there's not a ton of legitimate assassination threat on a Shogun either with Killer Queen being this weak. So I'm feeling like you're feeling good right now. Look at Killer Queen's goal. He's actually lower than everybody. Only the supports are lower than him right now by about 500, which is kind of insane. Shogun, by the way, 1 kill, but like has just been sitting in a side lane collecting waves for free. So the one member that's supposed to be putting out all of the damage for this squad is getting the gold to be able to do so.
Very close between Shogun and Nagia, and I think it does have to be said then as well that Nagia, if he can find a way into the backline with this Renekton, we know how strong the Crocodile is in the mid stages of the game. That being said though, Shogun does have a lot of protection with Froggy, Harsmed, Taki, and then his own Peel as well, having that Featherstorm at his disposal.
Absolutely. Okay. Whew. I'm so keeping track. There's a fight going on top lane right now, and I was curious about that. Whether there was for a second there, Cassante was directly on top of the Annie model, so I was curious if we were going to jump up and see that in any capacity, but we ended up not in any way. So walking into that's a lot of okay. Sorry, I noticed the double Gore Drinker. For some reason, I also thought Varus had one because it was the same red, and I'm like, what in the world am I looking at? No, we're not quite that insane in the VCS, thankfully. Maybe a couple years ago, but not right now. Right now, if I'm Team Wales and you're staring down the middle of not a massive gold disadvantage, but at least some sizable amount of gold disadvantage, something that like you're not able to operate on, and you're sitting here released in a Renekton, I feel like you do have to fight for Dragon, for Rift Herald, for something here, just to make sure you don't fall completely behind in this game. Because your powers, it's going to be more difficult to do damage to some of these tankier champions as the game goes on, so you do have to be a little bit cautious that you don't just get run through as Team Wales, which I do like them trying to get into this river. They have to be a little careful because they're weak. They have to find ways to kill damage dealers. Wow.
Fight has started. Froggy pulling Nagia on to the side, but he's going to take a lot of damage. Flash forward from Nagia, gets the kill onto Froggy. Thank you very much, says Team Wales, as they continue to try to secure the Rift Herald. Taki's low has been hit by the Winter Spy. What can Guri do? Steps her forward, actually doesn't steal away the Rift Herald, just gives his life over. So Team Wales are able to secure themselves 2 kills, and they're looking for more as well as they drop the Rift Herald into the mid lane.
Right there, Saigon Buffalo actually indexed pretty much everything into trying to make the assassination happen. And when they don't, like Froggy gets separated from the rest of the fight, doesn't buy any space for anybody to step up. And this is a huge snowball effect. So Saigon Buffalo, they lose a big fight with 2 members. Guri, again, unnecessarily challenging the Rift Herald for no reason. Dying means that Guri cannot be there for the dragon, which is interesting because I thought the whole point of this Rift Herald drop was to try to set up the dragon, which may or may not be the case. But Team Wales is taking back tier so that they can spend some of the gold that they just got. So there's a little bit of to and fro because Saigon should be able to wrestle their way back into the river to contest. They were so intent on finding that one pick, and then they just don't get Killer Queen. He flashed out the back of the fight, and then Froggy, of course, on the left side just ends up getting kicked, ends up going down to Nagia, and then Shogun trying to help out, trying to walk over here, wasn't able to get up close enough to actually auto B or Killer Queen or anybody else in this fight, and then they're just shoved off. And again, Guri, what are we doing? Like, there's no reason to be contesting this Rift Herald. There's no reason with none of your team around that you should be doing that. It's like a weird game sense difference that Guri has compared to everybody else, where he's like feeling need to be pressured in this situation to walk up when it's just not necessary.
Nagia looking for another flank. Team Wales have been able to get their reset and get themselves into the river. They find themselves with a 1.5k goal lead, and they are looking for another fight to balloon their advantage even further. Vit now level 10 does have the Chains of Corruption. If he could find a big pick onto Guri and the side of Team Wales could burst through that Elise, then this will be Wales picking up their first Drake of the game. All the while, Shogun picking himself up a red buff, so he's a little bit stronger for this fight that is surely about to kick off. Froggy looking for a potential pick. Sonic Wave won't land onto anyone from Killer Queen. Froggy slowly stepping forward and forward. Glory has all of his stacks ready to stun whoever he needs. Again, Guri goes in and knocked away from the Drake, and Killer Queen will be able to secure the Infernal. Nagia dashing away, still alive. So many health bars are low. Guri has already fallen, and Team Wales have one. Team Wales have a second as Hazmed falls, and now they're looking for Froggy. Winterspike will be able to find a slow onto the Saigon Buffalo mid laner, but no follow-up from the rest of Team Wales.
I do not know what it is that Saigon Buffalo is playing for here. It feels like they're playing constantly for objective steals more than anything else. They're not ready for the fight. They're not ready to full commit to try to go for the neutral objective to pull the dragon. Like, if they lose the fight afterwards and they pull third dragon, they have so much time in this game to play. Instead, they don't really do either. Like, look at this setup. There's 4 of them kind of clustered together. I'm surprised Glory did not the absolute dirtiest, like Timberland in the world. Look at this, right here. 4 stacked together. Instead, throws it directly at what I believe was Froggy, attempting to catch Guri so that you can prevent the smite from coming down. But had you thrown it into the backline, that probably ends up being 3-4 kills. Like, it was even misplayed by Wales, and they still can't win the fight because there's just no damage. Like, you've got some frontline. Froggy's trying to buy his team space, but nobody's stepping up. Nobody is trying to make things happen. Again, this is another instance where I talked about this earlier in the split too. Shogun is playing more afraid this split than has literally ever played in his career, and I don't get why.
And this comes back to what you were mentioning during picks and bans, the fact that Saigon Buffalo only have 1 damage source, and it's Shogun, and maybe this is one of the reasons why he's playing a little bit more defensively. Maybe he's scared if he steps too far forward and he makes that mistake, then the fight's over, and if he thinks, okay, if I play a little bit safer, maybe I'm alive for longer, I can have more of an impact. Maybe it's the case that Saigon Buffalo have just been having a rather rough start to the split, and Shogun losing some of that confidence.
Maybe that is the case. Again, he's not playing the way that I wanted it to. One of my biggest criticisms of ADCs or ADCs that are not willing to step up into the pocket and just kind of do damage sometimes. And that, you know better than anybody, that's my number 1 critique of Eddie, is that Eddie refuses to step up into the pocket and actually do damage sometimes. Like, he just won't do it. If his team is not winning the fight, then he can kind of snowball the rest of it. But if he needs to be one that does damage, that's never been the problem for Shogun. Shogun has always been somebody that's stepped up and done really big things. Even at MSI, on the biggest stage this team has ever seen, at Worlds, on the biggest stage this team has ever seen, they've never had that issue before, which is why I'm curious why out of nowhere now, all of a sudden, it's like Shogun has not been able to do that. And maybe you're right in this game. Maybe it's a little bit of confidence issues. Maybe they've been shaken a little bit. Maybe communication's off. Maybe the beginning of the split has kind of turned them like around a little bit. Maybe it's one of those positions where like Shogun is so pressured about being the only real damage dealer that he's like, I cannot die. I'm not allowed to die. I can position it perfectly. But something has to break here. You cannot let always compound into losing a game because you won't stand forward and auto attack people. I know it's menacing, but you got to do something. Don't just fall softly into the night with no noise.
And when you got Featherstorm available, Flash and Cleanse too, you do have the abilities to step forward, because if you make that mistake, you've got loads of tools at your disposal to keep yourself alive. So I feel like right now, there isn't that excuse not to be playing aggressively, as Killer Queen just getting caught somewhat. I don't think there'll be any Lee syndrome on to Froggy's Cassante. Team Wales just trying to get a bit of pressure, looking for a potential angle, maybe to start up the Baron Nashor.
And despite some of the early dominance from Guri being able to get to a massive farm advantage and have a lot of pressure that didn't end up...
Good dredge line, lands onto Killer Queen. The rest of Team Wales, though, instantly into the fight. Killer Queen somehow survived. Chains of Corruption will land. Hasmed has already fallen. Guri taken down to half health. The Blade Caller won't lock anyone from Team Wales in place as he continues to charge forward, looking towards Taki. Hail of Arrows won't quite find the slow onto Taki. But that being said, Team Wales get themselves a kill and now look towards the Baron.
That is not the first time that Saigon Buffalo has made an incredibly big attempt towards Killer Queen to remove him from the fight when the Lee Sin is not valuable. The Lee Sin is the weakest member of this team by a significant amount. Like, I would rather kill B than Killer Queen in a number of circumstances outside of a bit where you're going for a Baron or something, right? And if you do take him out, like, even if it's a 1-for-1, if you keep Guri alive, if you keep Shogun alive, you could probably fight around the Baron. And maybe that's the thought process here. Just, okay, if we drive out Killer Queen, then we can go for a Baron, and then like, maybe we trade another Dragon, but at least we get a bunch of gold back in return. Not going to be the case. Instead, nobody's got Dragon set up now. There has to be a back from Shogun really late, 36 seconds until the Dragon. Everybody from Team Wales is going to redeploy, except for Glory, who's going to have TP up and readily available for a fight around the Dragon Pit if that ends up coming to fruition.
And he's going to have Rabadons.
Yeah, and he's going to have Rabadons. There's these big spikes that are coming through. Rage Blade is done. You got that. Black Cleaver's been done for some time now. I mean, like, it's getting worse and worse here for Saigon Buffalo to try to take these fights.
In fact, it's not just Rabadon's completed for Glory.
Is that another AP item as well? It's a demonic now for Hasmed after the Rod of Ages. Okay, I've seen Rod of Ages before. I've seen demonic before. I've never seen Rod of Ages demonic. This has to be one of the first ones I've ever seen.
It's a demonic rod. Team Wales are taking the Drake, and I think Saigon Buffalo are going to try to cut their losses and try to rush down the Baron as quickly as they can.
They don't have damage for that. Who's doing damage?
They're actually getting through this.
That's surprisingly, yeah, but okay, they're already here though. It's like they were down to maybe 7,000, so they would have got it halfway before any response could come through from Team Wales. Like, they don't have the damage to make what happened. That was a bluff, and they just got called. And now, honestly, if I were Team Wales, I would just start it and say, okay, fight us. Like, what are you gonna do about it? Like,
this isn't the coin flip Team Wales from 2022, Rebel.
Cowards.
This is the calculated, the cowardly Team Wales. The Team Wales that are fourth in the split right now and might be jumping up to third after SBTC took that 2-0 loss to Team Flash earlier on today. Froggy, though, rooted under tower. Killer Queen lands a Sonic Wave. Doesn't go in and follow up on to Guri, but around the wall comes Nagia into the Glacial Fissure, and Team Wales will decimate Saigon Buffalo. It's only Froggy left standing, but that was all Nagia. What an engage from the Team Wales top laner.
I have not liked a single thing that Saigon has done this game, and I'm not even going to sit here and criticize them. If you want to do that during the break, we're happy to do so. Team Wales has punished this team in just about every conceivable way. Like, they left Shogun alone on the bottom side. Does not matter. Shogun can step up into the pocket. Glory has been a massive deterrent for multiple melee champions that are low range. The fact that Nagia, after the laning phase, like, Nagia was feeling okay and has just been this absolute difference maker. Like, Nagia does anything that he pleases inside of a team fight, and nobody has anything to say about it, which is just, it is the most Chad I think I've seen a Renekton play since Reeve days. Like, it's kind of awesome to see these massive flanks that Nagia have really paid off, like, insanely. And there's just no counterplay. That fight was demolition. There was nothing. Shogun didn't ult, Shogun didn't flash, Shogun didn't cleanse. There's no way out. Like, you just lose. Like, there's nothing to be done. And now you're going to be down 8,000 gold. Team Wales has a firm control of this game. Double Infernal means that they're on their way to Infernal Soul with all this extra damage. There's like look at this. Like, that's insane.
Nagia goes over the wall, and the rest of Team Wales just instantly follows up. And I'm trying to think about this game, right? And think about who has really stepped up. And genuinely, I can't think about who of Team Wales has been really impressive, because this just feels like a very good team performance. Every single member of Team Wales has played well. None of them dumpstered anyone from Saigon Buffalo in the early laning phase. It's all just come around skirmishing around objectives.
Nagia and B have been electrifying like the entire game. I know it doesn't look like insane, but right now Nagia and B actually have 100% kill participation for very good reason. B specifically on the Braum, like, somehow he took a decent matchup on bottom side. He translated it into map pressure elsewhere, and he snowballed the game. Like, Killer Queen was terrible at the beginning of this game, was down way too far, gave free gold over to the Sejuani that could have been a massive tank for this squad. Doesn't matter, because B kind of bailed him out around the neutral objectives, was able to help out when it came to punishing in a couple of circumstances, cutting off big kind of lines for Shogun. One of the main benefits of Xayah is that your feathers do through damage to a team. If Xayah can step up, she can actually hit like all 5 members at once, and there were fights where that was a possibility. B throws up a shield, feathers can't go through. Feathers aren't doing any damage to anybody.
Killer Queen just fishing for Sonic Waves over the wall. Froggy taking a lot of damage from Glory Zanny, forced to retreat. Team Wells will get the mid lane in a tower as Nagia doing things in the mid lane gets caught by the dredge line. But guess what? He's got a Guardian Angel, and now Team Wales are coming to party. Glory takes a lot of damage, forced to go golden. Killer Queen goes golden as well. Froggy on the precipice of a dying Shogun, and Aguri as well on the retreat. Hazmed left by himself, and he's just going to be bacon for Team Wales as Killer Queen steps forward, looks to Taki. The Ignite ticking down. Taki just about survives a double kill though for Vid, and Team Wales are now looking for the finish against Saigon Buffalo. 2 wins and 2 losses for Team Wales, and they're going to be halfway to getting their 3rd win of Spring Split as they collapse onto the Nexus, and Saigon Buffalo won't be able to do anything except watch the Nexus blow up in their face and take a few extra deaths as well.
And the thing was, like, Team Wales, when you think about like Killer Queen and wanting to aggress against the opposing jungler, got none of that, and they still win the game because they just did so much better in the mid game. They did such better fighting. They had such better setup around neutral objectives. Their fight wit's a lot better. And again, I have to give a ton of credit to B for that. I give a ton of credit to Nagia for that. But honestly, again, the pure decisions that are being made by Saigon are just like disastrous in a number of circumstances. I think I'm willing to say this. I was excited to see Guri. I think Guri on farming junglers is still like a really ridiculous. It's a solid tool to have readily available for your squad. Bring BJ back. You need veterancy, man. Like you cannot have that decision making in 2-3 of those circumstances to give away free kills, to open up fights. It can't happen. I'm not saying it's all Guri's fault. This game was lost in a number of different avenues, but you cannot have those little slip ups that are giving advantages back to Team Wales when the early game was going fine for you.
Well, to be honest, I don't really think there's much more to say other than what we have already said. Team Wales take game 1 against Saigon Buffalo, and aside from maybe that failed dive on the top side, it was pretty much a perfect game from them. No real slip-ups or anything of the sort. We're going to head into a short break, and when we return, we'll have game 2 between Saigon Buffalo and Team Wales. Stay tuned. And Team Wales.
This is a requiem for the Harlequin, the great pretender crashing down with style. Here's to the fall of man, fame to dust, fortune to sand. The great surrender finally arrived. This is how the the Harlequin, wake up, your chains are porcelain. Like a phoenix from the ashes, we will rise again. This is what the requiem loves to hear you sing, to the beat of your foolhardy hammering. One more time, we'll cry into the night again. This is a requiem for the comedian, the one who used to deftly dodge
welcome back everyone to the VCS. One final game to go. Rebel, are you feeling all right?
Oh, watch it there, bud. We got best of 3, okay?
Best
We got
of-
one more
I said
game
fi-
to go. All right.
Did I say
all right.
final game or final
You said
series?
one more game to go.
Oh yeah, it is one more game to go. Yeah, let's be
Sure.
real. Sorry, leaking the script. I apologize.
Ratio.
Possibly the final game of
Mhm.
the day between Saigon Buffalo and Team Wales. Team Wales taking game 1 in relatively confident fashion, as it almost felt like Saigon Buffalo lost their game plan and they kind of didn't really know what they were doing.
Yeah, behind the scenes, I got a lot more. I would say animated about it. But yeah, I agree with that. It feels like Saigon had so many other options that they could have gone to when it comes to draft, when it comes to strategy in that game. I'm still lost about the Guri usage. I still don't understand that this guy just needs to be on damage or needs to be on something that farms in the jungle, and they just haven't done it again and again. Just stop making him play ganking junglers, please. Stop making him ganking junglers. He has not had success on Elise. He hasn't had a bunch of success on Gragas. Just don't make him play. Don't make him play this shit. Give him something that he wants to play so that he can have the game. There were options in that game. We went through it. We're going to get into game number 2. Oh, there's the Talia. At least they're respecting with the Talia ban. I thought it was maybe banned out last game, and it's possible that it was. If that's the case, then you said it wasn't, but so blame Gilkey if I'm wrong about that.
But we always know that I'm always wrong, right? So that was
true.
practically me
That is
telling
correct,
you
yes.
that it was banned. Either way, Saigon Buffalo are going to respect Glories, and it still means that we've got the likes of Killer Queen's Lee Sin available, although Team Wales are looking to show Saigon Buffalo exactly how to utilize a first pick Xayah.
The Xayah is a beast. It does a 38% win rate. You can see its strength, though. The benefit of it is that you cannot pick Varus.
38% win rate.
That's what I just said. Can you
That's
not read?
terrible.
I mean, the 38% win rate on, I don't know what the sample size of the number of Xayah games is. It could be like 6 games or something like that. It could be like 10 games and it's like 4 wins or something. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is picking the Varus into it's not necessarily criminal. I think there's ways around it. Obviously, last game went out pretty well. And now we have Lee Sin. Is it BJ again? I thought I saw green. Okay.
And Saigon Buffalo are just doing the Team Wales draft, and now Team Wales are going to deviate from what Saigon Buffalo did by picking themselves up the Wukong instead of the Sejuani, I believe it was.
Whose win rate is currently being carried by Killer Queen as well. So they got a preferential champion for VJ to go aggressive into a champion that is likely not going to be that comfortable for Guri. But we do get the finally, it's the first time we've seen Guri on the Lee Sin, and obviously we use that as the ballast for VCS junglers to see who it is that is good at jungling. We've had people over the years have really bad games and really good games. Some of them are still around, and most of them are gone that didn't have good games. So this is our first look at what Guri is actually, whether he's a decent jungler or not, as opposed to the normal VCS kind of metric.
It's also why Blazes it doesn't play anymore, because that one time he played in jungle, he didn't play with Lee Sin, and even though he popped off with Graves, it wasn't.
Even though he had 10 CS a minute.
Exactly. So he had to be kicked. Saigon Buffalo, though, are going to lock themselves in an Ashe for Taki. So this is a lot of hope that can be coming through in the bottom lane. Wouldn't even be surprised if maybe we see like double Hail of Blades or something.
Double Archer bot's pretty good. And again, also, like you said, if it's double Hail of Blades or even double Comet, that's a lot better into Xayah most of the time than the normal, like, lethal tempo. Now, the reason why I want to go back to this, they took lethal tempo because you had potentially 2-3 tanks sitting in front of you. So I get that. That's fine. Like, you're not playing for the beginning of the game. You were down at the beginning of the game. Vit knew that coming in. Like, you were down 30, 40 CS at the beginning of the game, 10 to like 20, 15, 20 minutes in, whatever the circumstance might be. Vit knew that was going to be the case, and I respect him for playing it. Because it's like, okay, I'm not going to beat the Xayah in the laning phase, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to be a lot better as the lane goes on. Absolutely the case. The team out-team fighted and never concealed point. This is Saigon Buffalo doing the opposite, saying, okay, if I take Hail of Blades, I take Comet into a Xayah, now we can win the laning phase. Now I want to see some pressure to bot side. Guri is not a ganking jungler, but if he's going to become a ganking jungler, got to do it on this champion and got to make plays to the bottom side.
We should also mention as well, this is a case of the coach for Team Wales being Ren, who was the former coach for Saigon Buffalo. So Ren maybe going to pull out a masterclass against his former team. Draft went well for game 1. Can it go well for game 2? This is more of a Hazmed style of champion as a Gwen is locked in.
Yeah, I liked seeing Gwen. I think the Gwen is rather strong. It's not bad into Cassante or other major tanks because it rips through them like butter, and it means you don't really need a lot more AP. You can play the solo AP as the Gwen and not let them do anything else. So I think that's a more than reasonable grab up here for the Saigon Buffalo side. This is interesting. I haven't loved seeing Ari in the preseason, so this is a preference pick here for it. Ooh, let's go.
Sorry, guys. Rebel has devolved back into 8
Come
as
No!
the Belveth was being hovered. I would love to see a Pike.
Yes!
It's locked in. No way.
Okay, that's what we're here for. That's what we're all about.
Also, this is Glory's first Ari game of the split. I seem to remember last year Glory having one of the highest champion pools of anyone else in the split, alongside, I want to say, Froggy and Taki. And now the final pick then for the side of Saigon Buffalo, are they resorting back to 2022 strat? They are indeed.
They are.
Froggy back on Galio duty.
Okay, that's understandable. It's not my favorite, but at least they are going to get the job done. Again, it's somebody else to kind of tank some of the losses that you're going to have. So now you can play with Guri and with Froggy towards top and towards bot lane, as opposed to playing toward something else. Not to mention, very unlikely that you're going to end up finding any sort of aggression in the lane in the pure one-on-one against the Galio. You're trying to set up Killer Queen, if anything, but again, there are better places to strike the map than to kind of prevent Galio from snowballing. This is a lot more what Saigon Buffalo, I think, has done in the past to try to find advantages by sacking mid lane, by attacking the remainder of the map. I don't always love this. I think Froggy is too good to be doing this anymore. Like, he used to be a gremlin that went down 40 CS, and so you might as well roam, but that's just not the case. He's not that mid laner anymore, so.
Right, enough about Froggy. More about B. More about Belveth support. Talk me through it. Talk me about what
support.
Wales need to do to make this work and prevent B from having 2 back-to-back losses on the champion.
Okay, so the champion is discussing the knockup and the mobility that you have to be able to chase people down at the beginning of the game is kind of unreasonable. You go press the attack, you go Everfrost. I'm pretty sure this is all directly in line with what BU was playing previously. And you can become a pretty tanky champion as well without building an insane tank set of itemization. You can do some wild things. It's a lot more active, and it's a lot more... It's what I imagined Khan would be if Rakan were a tankier champion, where you can kind of dash around a fight, you can be a lot more disruptive. The difference is a lot more of an auto attacker than a spellcaster, so it's like that kind of variant as well, where Belveth is going to be a lot more value at the beginning of the game, to have a bit more damage to work with, and that's the fun of this champion. We have a couple people here in NA that have been playing it at support and just absolutely crushing ladders with it, so it's got a really skewed win rate here in NA, and that is tit for tat exactly what we're going to see here. Almost certainly B grabs up, press the attack. Again, if you sneak on top of this bottom lane and it's double arch bot lane and you get knocked up by this Belveth, you probably die. Like, it's probably going to happen, especially with feather setup from Xayah. It's just going to be the case. So that, I think, is the true threat, is just that, like, yes, Belveth probably gets poked out at least a little bit. That's why you go for bone plating, you go for some additional sustain in that regard. But once that's done, and once you have the potential threat of all in, especially with Killer Queen to bottom side, then you have to be a lot more careful if you're the double marksman.
Would you like to know a fun stat about these Belveth support?
Is it that it has one game and it has lost one time?
No.
Is it that it has...
the only competitive loss for Belveth support over a total of 5 games that has been played across the LJL and the CB LOL.
Busted champion, by the way. Dude, all of our play-in regions? Pog. Our plans for MSI and for Worlds is about to go crazy with this Belveth support.
So B will be wanting to get on to the win, or at least picking up some wins. So I'm just looking at what some other people have been itemizing on this Belveth support. So we have seen for B, he actually went, yes, Anathemas and Evan Shroud.
Yeah, even
However,
Shroud is pretty typical.
However, in the CB LOL Academy, we've been seeing some Jack Show the Proton and actually a rush on... what did they call it? Steel shoulder guard? No, not steel shoulder guards. Dead Man's Plate.
Yes. Yeah, I think a lot of that makes sense. So Dead Man's Plate would be for roaming potential. If there's a relatively free bottom lane, this would be like if you're playing it with Varus or Azriel and they can kind of stay back and they can farm relatively freely. That's perfectly fine. The reason for Even Shroud or for Jack Show is because you're living in the middle of the team trying to CC people. This is the setup I was talking about where B and Vit have already downed a summoner spell. Guri's in a perfect position though because you're counter ganking right now to ensure that they can't actually come in. So I want to see Guri hang around for a second if nothing else. He's going to get spotted out on. Oh, he actually doesn't get spotted out on the ward. Okay, good for them, because again, that means that the defensive Killer Queen is no longer necessary. They don't know where the opposing jungler is. Here we go.
However, Killer Queen straight into the mid lane forces Froggy to flash away defensively, and Killer Queen knows that he was spotted out by a Saigon Buffalo water, making his way straight up to the top side to pick up a Scuttle Crab and maybe even look for a gank onto Harsmith.
Yeah, okay. Do you notice, is Guri took 3 normal camps, has not taken either buff yet.
Interesting.
Huh? I don't think I've ever seen that before. Is this
Was
some
he
sort of
just
new
looking
advanced
to-
jungle pathing that I'm not familiar with?
Maybe he's just looking to try to make his way down towards the bottom side very quickly in anticipation of this Killer Queen gank.
Sure, but you hit level 3 by taking one of your buffs. So if you had red buff and then you were on bottom side, you would have matched what Killer Queen had, and maybe there's a chance of you actually being able to fight back. But without red buff, like, you would be down a pretty significant margin of strength that just doesn't exist. And now also you have to worry that like the buffs are going to reset a lot later. So like, is this intentional? I don't know whether there's some sort of jungle change that makes this beneficial for Guri, but
Killer Queen once again looking towards this mid lane, and you look towards that CS discrepancy now between the junglers at around 10. Killer Queen doesn't know that he could just invade into Guri's jungle, which would probably be very effective right now, as Glory just trying to find a potential angle for a charm. Can't find it, and Killer Queen's going to make his way towards his bottom side camps.
yeah, you can see they've been trying to the best of their abilities to make something happen against Froggy. Glory's been ganked a couple of times now just to see. Killer Queen is just trying to get something to stick. I think Killer Queen is more or less the focus of this early game. You're probably not going to win on you're not going to win out of mid lane just outright. The top lane's probably going to be a bit even. Haspet should be able to trade effectively, but yeah, there's always the possibility. It's Kasane. There's a lot of potential for solo kills to come through. But more than likely, if it's going to come from anywhere, it's going to come from access from Killer Queen, like the olden days of Killer Queen being kind of the dictator around the map, doing his best as possible to take some of the early first blood. But it hasn't stopped yet, which is a good thing. Saigon slowing things down, making sure the lanes are going to play out the way that we expect them to.
So I do have to ask as well, that Belveth game that we saw from B against Cerberus, was it B who played badly, or was he just an unfortunate bystander in Cerberus as a whole outplaying Wales?
I don't see B necessarily having been the problem. It was a lot more of a team gap than anything else. Not that I think that the Belveth was particularly like insane. It's not like Belveth was like trying to hard carry the game or anything like that. It was just more of a Gam was doing well across the map. Like Gam was fine. So Belveth actually did okay, if I recall. And he was like 2 and 4 or something was the stat line. Had some decent damage as well. Like the damage per gold for that game was kind of nutty for B, which is kind of just the whole racket of having the Belveth support. But again, it's not like it was keeping the game alive for Team Wales.
Still, first blood on the cards for both Team Wales and Saigon Buffalo. Fairly sizable CS lead starting to emerge for the Buffaloes, as Guri able to secure the first objective of the game, being that Chemtech Drake.
Yeah, this is a game that mimics the style that I think that Saigon Buffalo wants to play, which is dominating bot lane. You want a solo lane that's doing fine. You want a solo lane that's going to be quiet. And then normally you want a really quiet jungle matchup where it's like, okay, you don't have to be super active as Guri. You don't have to do a bunch. Here, Guri has had one counter gank that didn't end up leading to anything because Killer Queen wasn't able to actually even step into bottom side. So this is effectively a farming jungler, right? Now, he's not on a farming jungler, but he's effectively playing like a farming jungler where the early game is super quiet, hasn't been able to find any sort of early ganks because you're not really looking for them all that much. And the lanes themselves are just kind of playing themselves out the way you would want them to as Saigon Buffalo. This is how they want every game to play out, whether or not it's the Lee Sin or not. Now, I will say the Lee Sin's losing some value, obviously not getting any early aggression, but you can wait till 6, you can start kicking people and maybe then start making looks, especially with Froggy hitting level 7, gonna have the ultimate available, could jump on top of Guri at any point.
And Team Wales probably just waiting for an opportunity to really be able to skirmish effectively. We're seeing Shogun and Taki really abusing the fact that they have that Comet, they have that Hail of Blades, a lot of poke in the early stages of the game, and Team Wales recognizing that they don't have any significant lane priority anywhere to flex an advantage or take a fight just yet.
at all, which is a weird kind of dynamic that we're at. That it feels like a very quiet game from both sides, for out of necessity almost, where it's like Saigon wants to play super slow, but how do you force things as Team Wales? Because again, you got CC in a couple of places, but you don't really you have to have Killer Queen there for early action to really kind of take effect, more than anything else. So that's why bottom lane right now, yes, Bel'Veth support exists and is able to get on top of these two, but I don't think you're winning a pure 2v2 against these this Varus Ashe combination without landing some amount of poke, without forcing one of them in, especially with all their summoner spells. It's very unlikely you're going to win that 2v2. And you're not winning mid lane outright because you're playing Ahri into Galio. You're not winning top lane, at least not right now. You're not winning top lane. Nagia hasn't been able to find a solo kill on K'Sante. And so, Team Wales is kind of treading water, too. We're in a position where, Saigon has not sped up the game because they don't feel the need to, and they want to play a little bit more slowly. And Team Wales is, they're treading water because they have no other options. They're waiting for their jungler to come online, but so far, Killer Queen just hasn't been all that active. And in the meantime, 3 plates going down on the bottom side are really, really big. No other plates anywhere else. It's just an advantage for these 2 marksmen on the bottom side.
However, while Guri is on the bottom side of the map, Killer Queen is on the top side, and Team Wales have found an angle to secure a Rift Herald. Enchanted Crystal Arrow instantly cleansed by Vit. Sonic Wave lands, and surely Guri is going to go in, and down goes the Xayah, but Glory in for the rescue. Makes it a 1-for-1, and Froggy too late with the hero's entrance B, trying to potentially turn this one around. Can't do anything in a 1v3, and Glory can't follow up now. Dashing on in, lands the charm onto Shogun, but there are still minions under the tower, and Shogun will not take any tower aggro.
Yep, and the tower will go down as well because it's double marksman. There's not enough wave clear, I do not imagine, for Glory. There's going to be a bit of coverage here to make sure that there is no Wukong gang coming in, which is not the case, or at least it's going to be a little too far out, so nothing to be had. Yeah, in fact, actually, I think Killer Queen was waiting for Froggy to walk back up into mid lane, but was not able to do so. So now has actually lost a chance to potentially push mid lane and punish Froggy a little harder. This was good. Again, the Enchanted Crystal Arrow combined with the other arrow, look at that damage on the Fit. What are you supposed to do? The immediate jump in from Guri. I mean, maybe he just wasn't expecting the jump in from Guri because Guri was basically sacrificing his life right there. But Vit might have just misplayed slightly. And then also delivering Froggy into a position where B was going to get stuck under the tower.
Nagia just takes a tower shot from Harsman and Enchanted Crystal Arrow from Taki just to make sure that Nagia would have died. But Harsman will take the kill, and Nagia will just give her little Ramus thumbs up.
And just like that's 2,000 gold advantage for Saigon Buffalo. The win on bottom side, the early abuse with the double in here, the win on top side for Hosmed, who's again on a more comfortable champion than what we've seen for the majority of the split. Got to give tons of props. This team is looking much, much better. And again, when it's not Guri-centric on the beginning of the game, and they're not relying on a lot of early jump pressure to kind of win the game, this is where they've looked a lot better. Saigon Buffalo at every loss has gone 3 full games, and they've always had a game where they do this, where the game is not continued on the jungler, end up crushing because their lanes are going really well, and then they just end up winning the game off of it because they're feeling a lot more confident. They're feeling a lot more like the regular Saigon Buffalo. This is interesting because Nagia took tower shots and kind of misplayed pretty hard, I would say, in a lot of circumstances, pushing himself into tower and losing a bunch of his health bar, taking a tower shot, all that stuff.
Now, let's not forget, while it is a 2k goal lead for Saigon Buffalo, Team Wales they don't have a Rift Herald. Where did they use a Rift Herald?
That is a great question, because they must have dropped it mid because there's 2 plates off mid tower. Although, in fairness, I think Vit stepped into mid lane immediately after that play on bottom side, so that's probably where those 2 plates went. So I do not know where the Rift Herald got dropped.
Either way, B looking for a potential engage. Taki's forced to flash away. Charm will not land on it to anyone, and Team Wales will just back away. All the while, Harsmed and Nagia just chilling in the top lane, doing top laner things, just trading some small health bars. Enchanted Crystal Arrow will land onto Vit, had the Feather Storm, and there is just no way out. Will flash away, just about to survive. Winds of War from Snoggy, from Froggy will snipe him down.
What? Vit is he has to be trolling. He has Flash and he has Feather Storm, and he uses neither to avoid the majority of that CC. I'm really lost as to what has happened with Vit and the Xayah. The Xayah has so many defensive tools in the game like this, and just has not used any of them to their fullest extent for the last 2 fights, which is a little bit criminal in my mind. Just it feels like they easily could be.
That's not the angle, buddy. So game 1, we saw Shogun playing the Xayah with Sums and ult up, but not playing aggressively when he had a way to get out. And here in game 2, we're seeing Vit playing aggressively with his summoners up, but then not using his summoners or his spells to stay alive.
Yeah, so let's take another look at this, because, okay, I get it as that right here, can you Featherstorm, can you Flash if you have good reaction speed? And then it's like you're just kind of stuck in place, so I don't know. Maybe that was the case. It was really well layered CC if stun had come through, but probably should have burnt something on the front end of that rather than anything else, which I think is my number one complaint. But you do have to react in time, which is, our expectations are set high because these are professional players, but again, I get the human reaction of not being able to kind of react to that arrow fast enough, and then you're stunned into the Varus ultimate, then you press your Flash, then you press you just getting out of dodge. But at that point, I feel like you just save those two and you just give the kill away, because at that point, you're just wasting summoner spells.
Team Wales slowly slipping further and further behind. Now 3.5k gold behind the Buffaloes, who do have 2 Drakes and will be looking for their 3rd Drake of the game in 3 minutes time, which will take them to Cloud Soul Point if they are able to secure it. Still waiting as well for Vit and B to complete their first items.
We are. They're very behind in a game like this, which, again, this is, I think, one of the preferable kind of setups for Saigon Buffalo is having Taki and Shogun in a winning matchup. Like, Shogun has picked up Varus, I think, quite a bit better than we would have thought he to have been before the split. I don't know if they did much Varus prior to this. I never pictured him as much of a Varus player. He was always like the Jinx and the Kaisa, these hyper carry types, as opposed to the Varus, which doesn't do that as much. But I think is really well acquainted with the Varus as of this. So when you're pairing it with something that Taki just wins the lane with by having this range advantage, I mean, you're usually feeling really good. And like, the Nautilus is great, don't get me wrong. Taki's a good Nautilus player. But like, you don't win the lane nearly as hard as with something like the Ashe when you have this range advantage and you can take advantage of the support matchup. So generating that is one of the big things that, to me, Saigon has to be doing. And they haven't done that perfectly over the course of the split. But again, when they've been able to do it, it has looked really good.
Saigon Buffalo just, another really good Enchanted Crystal Arrow from Taki. Froggy, though, won't be able to follow up on it. We do have a Rift Herald spawning in a few seconds' time, and Saigon Buffalo looking to get some control over the topside river so that they are appropriately set up for it.
Ooh. Yeah, I was like, at some point they're going to jump into this fight that's happening right now, because there's a lot of brawling right now going on for Vision in this topside river. As Team Wales, I'm surprised they're going.
Well, Killer Queen is flashing forward, will land a Cyclone, kicked away though by Guri. Team Wales won't aggress any further. Both top laners are recalling. They both have teleport available, although Nagia won't have to use his because he's already in the river.
Okay, interesting. Without Flash, without ultimate from Killer Queen, they're missing a decent amount of their tools. They still have a way to get Galio into the midst of this team as well. If everybody shows up here, yeah, there's a teleport as well. They're just going to be showing up in spades. And now Team Wales, they have no bearing. And they're also missing members out of the mid lane, so like they might just blitz down mid tower as well, just kind of gain everything here. Saigon Buffalo, Vit!
Uses the cleanse, and then the piercing arrow just takes half of Vit's health bar away. Be almost getting tagged by Froggy's call on the Galio. And again, that time I feel like I can forgive Vit because maybe he thought he was safe and he was far back, and he instantly cleansed it. It's like,
No, he didn't instantly cleanse it, which is the worst part. And then he has Featherstorm, which is a lower cooldown, and he's got Gale Force, which is a lower cooldown. Milky, this guy has every possible fathomable way to dodge a damn Ashe ultimate, and homie's not pressing his buttons.
Maybe the buttons aren't working.
What do you mean the buttons aren't working?
I don't know.
I'm not trying to harp on this too crazy, but like at this point, like I'm starting to blame Vit a lot more than he probably like you can't get hit with this many Ashe ultimates and just not be ready for it at this point. Taki's just gunning him down.
Look, to quote a very famous interview in Formula One, what would you like to see for the future? More buttons, less buttons? Are too many buttons too complicated to use?
I understand.
Don't worry, Beast will get that.
That's great. I'm glad the one person in our audience that gets it will be enjoying.
Yes. No,
just like our chess references.
People. No, you have to be cultured though to get that. It's you
have to be cultured. My bad.
Meme. Yeah.
My bad. I forgot that racing sim was in the esports Olympics and League of Legends is not. So.
Yeah, but they don't even get me started about it. Just please don't get me started about
I'm not
that.
gonna start
Okay,
anybody. Everybody's angry about it. Okay, we don't have to
literally
start it.
every single person. They put Just Dance
Don't
in
want
there
to
or
hear it.
something.
Don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
but you can't bring it up and then be like, I don't want to hear it. Anyway, Rift Herald has been dropped into the
I
mid
can
lane, and
absolutely
Charlie
do that.
Crystal Arrow is making his way down. Teleport
Okay.
from Team Wales. They really want to commit to this play. They really want to get the Rift Herald charging forward. They get one tower. They're going to look for potentially a second. Unless the eye can get hit, it will not. Froggy, though, stepping forward right into an Everfrost. Killer Queen coming over the wall with a Cyclone. Froggy goes golden. Won't get tagged out by the knockup, but Team Wales with the follow-up. Good charm will land onto Shogun. Forced to flash away defensively.
Hosman.
And now Hosman is making his way into the backline, looking towards the bit as Blade Caller is denied by the Hallowed Mist. But in goes Nagira, and a great follow-up from Glory. Shut down onto Shogun. And again, Team Wales are displaying fantastic team fighting ability. Over the wall goes Glory, looking for Hosmed and Guri, who are on the run. This time the charm, though, won't land, and Saigon Buffalo will be able to escape with 2 members falling.
And this time, I think it's just a super well-executed team fight from Team Wales. Actually, honestly, it's not even the team fight that they won. It's more the retreat. Okay.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Guri over the wall, gets the kill onto Killer Queen, steals away
Where you
the
going?
and now on the hunter for Glory. Guri and Glory. Guri comes out on top with a double kill.
Okay, there we go, Guri. All right, we're getting a bit more of a look at the Lee Sin. He's gonna not be able to actually tag the Xayah, so not gonna be able to grab anything except for the grow up here. But a cleanup on the backside of this fight actually gets so much more than they probably deserved in this one. Froggy, little too antsy there, bud. Little too fancy at the beginning of this. I did like Guri's kick. Getting out was, again, blocking Froggy's exit here was really wild. I thought Hosbet's flank was going to do some ridiculous damage right here. But unfortunately, the scatter to the wind, I think, was really, really well played by the rest of Team Wales because there was just nowhere to put that ultimate. And then Nagia on this massive Cassandra is able to find an assassination and just scatters the rest of Saigon to the wind. They don't have their primary damage dealer. So picking up 2 kills on the backside of that fight was huge to clutch out something, because you get at least a bit of gold back in return for that big play out of the mid lane that Team Wales had forced on.
And as a result, Saigon Buffalo maintain themselves a 3k gold lead. They're on for Cloud Soul as well in 2 minutes time. And when you're thinking about those ultimate cooldowns for the likes of a Varus, for the likes of an Ashe, even for Froggy as well, those are some big cooldowns.
They're big cool. Well, okay. What do you mean by big cooldowns? Do you mean they are important, or do you mean that they are large cooldowns? Okay, because I'm like, they are not long cooldown. Like, this Ashe ultimate's probably going to be up in like 30 seconds.
Yeah, and now it'll be up in like 22 seconds.
That's what I'm saying. As they tick up further and further at level 11, like, that's going to get even better. Shogun also can kind of fish with Chains of Corruption, which is why I think Saigon Buffalo grand scheme is okay with, like, even if team fights aren't going great, they have a lot of potential pick tools. Like, they've got Guri's kick if you're able to find a good insect. You got Froggy being able to jump in. You've got Chains of Corruption. You got Enchanted Crystal Arrow. All these additional pick tools that Saigon Buffalo have mean that it is difficult to get a purely fair 5-on-5 team fight. Team Wales was able to get one out because they were able to force up mid lane with Rift Herald and force a defensive kind of posturing from Saigon Buffalo, and then kite backwards, which is the benefit of their composition. Bel'Veth does that well, Xayah does that well, Ahri does that well, even Cassandra I think does that pretty well comparative to some other tanks and bruisery type champions. So they found themselves a really good situation and capitalized on it perfectly, but I do have my hesitation to say that that's something that they can rely on consistency in this game.
Our answers, I'm sure, will be answered in about... Did I say
our
answers will be answered? No, our answers will be questioned, or maybe our questions will be answered in
our questions
a minute's
will be questions.
time. For the questions will always remain as questions, and maybe they will transcend into answers for us. But Saigon Buffalo will be eagerly awaiting the arrival of the Cloud Drake. Team Wales will have to find a way to defend. They were able to win that previous fight, although Guri, with a rather heroic performance, was able to find 2 kills on the back end in, say, a skirmish that was completely unrelated to the initial fight.
You could say unrelated. I would say it's the same fight because it happened directly afterwards, chronologically. That's fine. You don't have to.
You literally just said it happened afterwards, so it's part of something different.
Okay, wait. Is farming this wave? He farmed that minion after the other one. Does that mean he wasn't farming the minion wave the whole time because it happened after? That's what I thought.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point.
Yeah, I'm the greatest. I know. It's fine.
I mean, let's be honest, Game 2 is part of Game 1 as well because it happens directly after Game 1.
You know what they call that? They call it a series. That's what we're catching right now.
Right. Yes, they had a series of fights, and Guri won the second fight of the series.
I mean, you could say that in some circumstance. Yeah, sure, I'll take that I'll take that, and I'll take it as a win too. Well, I'll just do
Okay.
both. Why did we get 2 control wards there? That's a bigger question for me. That's like 150 gold just sitting there doing nothing. I know they probably cleared a ward with it. I just, like, you'd think they would communicate about who to play. Yeah, you see that ward to the right?
Yeah.
That's what they're looking for. And
They
somehow
just
I
want to
think
give
2 people
gold over
went
to
down.
Glory. That's all that's
That's
happening.
what I'm
Team Wales,
saying.
though, they're actually going to sneak away a Draken. Saigon Buffalo aren't aware of this, so Saigon
They
Buffalo not
probably are.
contesting their sole point. Or they
They
are, but they just
probably
don't care.
They probably know, and they probably don't care because they're looking for either a fight setup or a setup around the Baron or something like that.
I
And
think
they
we're
don't
going to try
quite
to rush
have
Baron.
There we go. Okay.
Enchanted
But
Crystal
Nagia,
Arrow, tagged up
good
by
W.
Nagia.
Yeah, well played by Nagia, just being able to use the W to unstoppable through it. Now they're going to walk Baron, which I think now you can turn off of it, and I think it's a lot better because you don't have to chase. The big thing about Team Wales is if they're on Baron and they start kiting off of it, that's when the danger comes in. So if you're Saigon Buffalo and you're forcing them to kite backwards away from Baron, then you just turn for Baron. So it's a great position to be in if you're Saigon Buffalo to grab. It's the right decision to actually be the first one on the objective so that if the enemy starts fleeing, which is the benefit, again, if you're Xayah, if you're Bel'Veth, if you're Ahri, and you're running away, you're still doing damage pretty well on the kite back. If you're kiting away, you're going to lose the dragon, or you're going to lose the objective, whatever it might be. So I like that strategy from Saigon Buffalo. They did give up a dragon for what seems like very little, but they did keep mid-pressure. They do have an entrenchment inside the top river. They've got some things to work with. I don't think it's quite enough kind of compensation, but it's at least something. They didn't get nothing from that. But Team Wales finding that dragon to slow down the inevitable march of the soul point that Saigon Buffalo has built to at this point.
And it gives them a few extra minutes to try to scale up. And fit now on 2 items. Navori Quick Blades completed, as is the Gale Force. Glory on 2 items as well. Looking towards that Zhonya's Hourglass, and Nagia slowly becoming tankier and tankier on this Cassante.
Getting better and better, able to live inside of everything. A lot of magic resist necessary because obviously with Gwen, you have to worry about just getting kind of ripped through. So Cassante, specifically Nagia, he's indexed into more magic resistance than normally you would see. Normally you'd see like Thornmail, you'd see something else. But in this case, the Cassante, I think, is a well-warranted amount of magic resist, given that Hosmed now almost like 2.5 items as the blasting wand and everything else is going to be feeling good.
Speaking of Nagia, here he is in the bottom lane, and Glory's just hovering around, waiting for an
That's a lot.
opportunity to Spirit Rush over the wall. Killer Queen is here, and Glory now deciding to go in, dashing forward, lands the
Wow.
charm, lands the Everfrost. Surely they
What
get
in
the
the
kill. They
world?
do indeed. Tower damage doing a lot of work onto Nagia. 2-man talk comes through, knocked up by Froggy. Glory will fall. Nagia is going to fall as well. He's on the run, but he's got nowhere to go. A lot of movement speed, and will be able to use the Rift just to try to get away. But Guri over the wall picks up the kill. And in the end, 3 members of Team Wales die as they try to get a pick onto Hosmed.
Yeah, not only that, but like again, caught in the jungle in the midst of everything was Killer Queen. Now they just run it Baron, and what are you to do if you're Vit and B? Like you could run in with Featherstorm, and you could run in with the ultimate from Bel'Veth and try to make things happen, but like you're not winning this almost certainly unless you like coin flip and end up grabbing the Baron away from the smite from Guri, who has it available readily to go. I just like you're not gonna
Don't
have
do it,
time for Nagia. Yeah, this is probably not the right choice. Like you just run away. Yeah. A very, very hard play that just loses the game almost feels like for Team Wales, where it's an extremely winning situation now for Saigon Buffalo, where like, again, what was the benefit? You killed Hosmed, sure. But like, why are you doing this? Like, there's no reason to do. They're walking towards Baron. Notice that there's 3 members kind of posturing towards Baron
Saigon
right
Buffalo are on the other side of the map at this point.
now. Yeah. And they're like, okay, we get this. But like, the trade-off is, okay, we give Baron for a pick under the tower, maybe the tower, and also with the cross map that's available, even if Guri is the only one here, if Froggy's close enough to ult, like you probably get a kill in return anyway. And then here's Killer Queen trying to escape because Killer Queen came over the wall, just runs directly into both marksmen. Like, I'm so lost as to what the idea was here from Team Wales, because they're like, okay, it's like they put everything into killing Hosmed, and they're like, okay, now what? It's like, oh, I didn't think that far ahead. Didn't think we'd get this far. My bad.
Well, Saigon Buffalo with a Baron buff are now pushing in the mid lane. The 1+ right now for Team Wales is that they do still have all of their base intact, and 2 inner towers intact, at least until Hosmed looks towards this bottom lane inner tower, and that's going to fall very quickly. Saigon Buffalo extending their gold lead now to 5,000, actually 6,000 gold ahead.
The deep flank from Glory. He teleported onto a mid lane ward and will not gank either. There's backing coming through right now. There's actually 3 members up for Saigon Buffalo, despite the dragon coming up, which I'm a little shocked about. Froggy can always enter with the ultimate, so I'm not shocked that Froggy's here. Yeah, only just now Shogun and Taki kind of remade their path up towards mid lane because they were like trying to redeploy, trying to figure out where Ari had gone, where Glory was. I want to see everybody stay on the map though, because again, Dragon's going to be up here. They have a ridiculous amount of setup around this Dragon. Just take the soul point. Like, you're okay with that.
Well, Drake is up in a few seconds' time, and Saigon Buffalo are already in the bottom lane river, and it doesn't look like Team Wales are going to be looking to contest this.
Hosmed, what are you doing? Oh, okay, he's clearing to make sure that there's nobody in the jungle waiting for him to die. No, yeah, he can teleport, but he's not walking to top lane to try to deny Nagia, because I think he's terrified of getting ganked right here. Which is fair, because they did do it to him before, but now he doesn't have the cross-map support. He has Gallia, that's about it. So, actually, an arrow.
Yeah, arrow to the top side, but I think once again, Hasmed is going to die, but this time, Team Wales won't die on the back end of the play, so Wales will get the kill and now look towards the top lane in a tower. That up as well. So it's not a total loss for Wales, but Saigon Buffalo do pick up the Cloud Soul.
See, I think this is what their intention was with the other side of the map. The only thought was, okay, Baron's going to take a lot longer to take, and so we should be able to respond to it in the right circumstance. But last time, Saigon Buffalo said, okay, we take Baron, so let's just lean into their play, and then they make the defense happen. As opposed to this time, where they're like, oh, let's just grab Cloud Soul. Because now, you know, we have a Gwen with Cloud Soul, we have a Lee Sin and a Gallia with Cloud Soul. This extra move speed is going to go absolutely dummy on a number of our champions. So they don't care. Like, they don't care. I think Hosmed honestly should have dumped it ultimate in wave and then just walked away so that there was no chance of the tower going down instead of walking up like this. Because he had cleared with a sweeper to say, okay, nobody's here. And then after the sweeper was down, walked the top lane, and that's when people could walk in. There was no contest on the dragon. They kind of had an inkling of okay, if nobody's down here, where could they possibly be? How about the only place on the map that somebody else is showing for Saigon Buffalo?
10 kills to 5 for the Buffalo. They still lead, but the gold deficit, or their gold advantage, has dwindled down to 3,000. And Vit now has a little bounty. Vampiric Scepter picked up, as well as the tier 2 boots, and Glory slowly but surely becoming stronger and stronger. Now has a Blighted Jewel that will presumably be building in towards a Void Staff.
I don't think it builds in anything else. Clown.
Is that the only thing?
Yes.
So I guess we could say I was correct then.
I believe you were not correct, because you said it's probably going into Void Staff when it was definitely going into Void Staff.
I mean, maybe he's just buying the component. He could just look to sell it.
That is true. I mean, he could look to sell it. He could also look to hold it, but I doubt that, because there is a decent amount of resistance to be had on this team to make sure. You just need more damage on the Ahri. It's a pretty low damage Ahri build, actually. You got the double pen now, so you're going to start hitting a little harder, but again, with like a Banshees and with an Everfrost, you know, this isn't Ludens. It's not like a Dark Seal with like the Magi stacks or anything like that. It's Glory, who hasn't been hitting that hard over the course of the game. Bloodthirster done as well for Vit. That's a decent play. Although we haven't seen Shogun really interact with anybody on the side of Team Wales for a hot minute. There was that one kill against Killer Queen earlier, but outside of that, we haven't seen the arrows hit because he's on 4 items. Like, he's going to be hitting like a truck against anybody without armor, which is, surprise, surprise, 3 members. Like, there's none on Wukong, there's none on Glory, and there's none on Vit.
Doesn't Wukong passively get armor though?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit, but that also, it requires him to be in the midst of...
Oh my god, Glory with a Spirit Rush to avoid the Enchanted Crystal Arrow on the run. Everfrost to find a slow, still trying to run as much as he can, flashes away. Nagia comes in to keep his mid laner alive, but sadly Killer Queen has already fallen. And all the while this happens, I think Vit and B just trying to push in the mid lane.
It's like they came out of nowhere right there, where Saigon Buffalo just collapsed on 2 members that were extended to the top side for basically nothing. They didn't leave either. They're actually making the prediction that those 2 are not going to make, they're not going to keep pushing, and they're not going to back, so they're going to make a play against Nagia now.
Nagia chunked down to half health. Glory is around, does have a charm available, so Glory can't get too angsty. Enchanted Crystal Arrow just to zone Team Wales away. Nice. Saigon Buffalo will secure the final inner tower.
Yes, all outer towers outside the base are gone now here for Team Wales. They're all cracked. That's a bunch of damage. This is the Ash. Okay, so this is how they collapse so fast. Now I'm understanding. Glory! Oh! He ulted too. He lost the ult card. Yeah, the Banshees was kicked and it prevented that from going through. But I think Glory was trying to hold the Banshees, and that's why he popped the ultimate. He basically ulted on top of himself in place in order to get away from the arrow, and he just didn't need to. So that was... Didn't end up dying because of it. Like, Glory was able to get out, but it's really shocking that that decision was kind of made right there, because it was It was a waste of an ultimate, something that could have maybe been used on a return or something that could have been used to try to help save a teammate or something like that. Because one charge can make a world of difference when it comes to setting up a charm. If you play aggressively for one charge and then use the second two for defense, you can just walk away. But not the case. Instead, a solid pickoff, a solid burn of the bunchies, and now control of Saigon. Again, 4,000 gold advantage. Now they've got the Cloud Drake. Elder Dragon's going to be coming up here in a minute and a half. Baron has been available for some time. That's a big ultimate.
Chains of Corruption as well. 2 ultimates are thrown on to Nagia, but Taki's Enchanted Crystal Arrow will be off cooldown relatively quickly. And Saigon Buffalo trying to get control of the topside river for a Baron. And then once they have the Baron, they are going to be able to push waves and look for an Elder as well. Team Wales, their situation slowly starting to get more and more dire.
Yes, the thing you have to be careful about is that if you put too much into going to Baron here as Saigon Buffalo, you potentially give the Elder Dragon, and then you have to be very cautious about the way that you approach sieging around the map. So I would be a little bit careful if you're Saigon Buffalo here. They're going to walk at Baron. They're going to start it up. I think it makes a ton of sense. They've already knocked Nagia and B down a fair amount of health, which is pretty cool.
Taki and Shogun have both of their ults up once again. Enchanted Crystal Arrow is going to land onto B. Nagia chunked down, has a nice little shield, but Hasmed is on the hunt and does so much damage on this. Gwen B still alive, but just by the hair of his chinny chin chin. Hasmed now looking towards Nagia, finds the kill. Cyclone from Killer Queen, but Team Wales are on the wrong side of the map. Guri flashing forward, lands a Sonic Wave, goes golden, and there is just not enough damage from Vita. Saigon Buffalo clean up Team Wales. Killer Queen, the only member left standing. Froggy's going to see Killer Queen quite late, but will now look for a potential play and surely should be able to get a kill here.
I think Killer Queen actually is decently strong. He's 3 levels down, but he is a Wukong up against the Galio who just does not have the auto attack. Oh, you gotta clown the one-on-one like that. Come on. All right, well, they wasted the one-on-one, but that is the only thing that was necessary. The last nail in the coffin here for Team Wales was a big fight around Baron. They got baited into it. Again, they had to find a way to actually get into the pit. They tried to find a way to kite backwards towards the base of Saigon Buffalo, but Saigon Buffalo was not having it. They had these pick tools. They were able to get a lot of members from range. They split up the fight really effectively. Cosmet did a lot of damage, and they ended up coming away with a win here in game 2, going to another 3-game best of 3. Saigon's MO of losing the first game and then winning game number 2 to take us into a full series.
It's almost like 2022 all over again for Saigon Buffalo, because I'm pretty sure they were doing that then as well. Just loads of 3-game series. I don't think Saigon Buffalo have ever won a 2-1 this split. So maybe this is Saigon Buffalo's first attempt then, or first opportunity to finally win a 2-1. Or maybe the cards will be the same as before and they will lose 2-1. All we know, we're going to be heading into a break, and when we return, we'll have game 3 between Saigon Buffalo and Team Wales. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the world, no heroes and villains. Welcome to the war, we've only begun. So pick up your weapon and face it. There's blood on the ground, go and take it. You get one shot to make it out alive. So higher and higher you chase it. It's deep in your bones, go and take it. This is your moment, now is your time. So prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Rise, push through heaven. Rise, rise. They will remember you. Rise. Welcome to the climb up, reach for the summit. Visions brave, the one falls, steadily the end. So higher and higher you chase it. It's deep in your blood, go and take it. This is your moment. Take to the skies, go. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Rise, push through heaven. Rise, rise. They will remember you.
Welcome back, everyone, to the VCS English. As I just heard, I can't tell if that sound I just heard was from Rebel or Spood, but anyway, we're
Could
heading
be.
into game 3, and this time it is going to be the final game between Saigon Buffalo and Team Wells. Could you just fact check that one for me, Rebel? I am correct.
That is correct this time. As opposed to
Perfect.
last time when you had claimed otherwise, as if we
Yeah,
have the
when I was
prior
wrong.
knowledge on how these series would go. Yeah, that tends
Yeah.
to happen, doesn't it?
Exactly,
Curious.
right? So let's see if I make any other assumptions, and then, the exact opposite is going to happen, because that's how the VCS split goes. Back a couple of years ago, whoever has the best draft loses, and now it's whatever Milky says won't happen.
You know what they say about assuming, Milky?
Oh, yes, I've heard. You make
What
an
have you
ass
heard?
out of you and me. But, Rebel, you phrased it wrong. It's what they say about when you assume, because when you are assuming, it's ass out of you and Ming, and my name ain't Ming. Or
No, it just
I don't
makes
know
an
a
ass out
Ming.
of you. It just
Poor
it just
Ming, the
makes an ass out
RNG
of you.
support. What's he gonna do, right?
Yeah,
You're making an ass
it's
out
your
of
fault.
Ming. Yeah, what can you do? Poor old RNG. Anyway, let's talk about the series at hand, though, because Saigon Buffalo did take a rather convincing win against Team Wells. So what do you want to see Team Wells doing differently heading into game 3?
Number one, first and foremost, Killer Queen's
Mm.
got to be better. Like, Killer Queen did not have a great game, was not able to be active on Lee Sin, or on Wukong, my apologies, not Lee Sin, Wukong, was not able to be active on Wukong, was not able to have the early pressure that you really wanted to be. We have to see that step up. The number one place that you can punish this Saigon roster when Guri is in is out of the jungle position. If you make Guri play aggressively to start the game, then you are going to likely get a coin flip that's going to turn in your favor. Guri had okay performance at the beginning of that one, not great. Again, there's the one hover that I thought was really transcendent, but outside of that, the game was silent. Killer Queen did nothing with 3 lanes that could potentially be ganked. You gotta do something. You cannot let them sit on their hands and scale up and let your lanes get abused like that. So we're hoping that that's the case here for game number 2. As it's an insta-Viego lock-in. Okay.
Killer Queen's third different jungler for the series. Once again, Desire will be picked up by the side of Team Wells, but Saigon Buffalo saying, we want to first pick in the Lee Sin, and we like to talk about Lee Sin being effectively
There's
the
that.
litmus test for junglers in the VCS. How did Guri stand to the Lee Sin test?
I thought he was okay. He wasn't a stud by any standard. I don't think there was anything particularly flashy. I don't think there was anything that particularly showed off like his unrivaled aggression or domination in the mechanical sense. But it was a serviceable Lee Sin game. I still don't think that's the strength of Guri, in my opinion. So I'm not going to rate him on that Lee Sin. That's just the meme that we like to kind of push out here at the VCS English. That every time there's a rookie jungler, we need to see their Lee Sin before anything else. It's just taking stock of what they're able to do with the champion that's defined this region. But in this particular case, I don't think Guri was necessarily terrible. Maybe this game you'll be able to flex some more of those mechanical muscles, but that's not what this guy's known for. I'm happy to say that I think he's got a very different kind of skill set.
The other funny thing that I found is coming into this series, you've been praising B for just playing Enchanter and range supports. In this series, we've seen Braum, we've seen Bel'Veth, and now we're seeing Nautilus. So the exact opposite of what we anticipated coming through from the Team Wales support. And now there's a little bit more engage available to this Wales bottom lane to potentially punish Shogun and Tar.
Yes, but you are once again picking a melee champion into double range bottom lane. While there is the potential of engage now, again, it has to be punished. Killer Queen's on a jungler that can get active at the beginning of the game, doesn't have to. And of course, Glory or my apologies, B is in a situation where, again, if you're not careful about your engagement, you end up getting punished by the combination of double marksman. So I would, I'm not in love with what's coming through here. Again, I think B has been way more creative previously with range supports, and I'm surprised we are getting a little bit of a battle of the two here on the bottom side. Back on Gam, B was somebody that was pushing Taki as B has been the best support in the league for a long time. It was pushing the champion pool of Froggy to its absolute limits, and it just has not been the case in this series at all, which is astonishing to me that did not come up.
Well, let's see what the final couple of picks are then for Saigon Buffalo and Team Wales. Renekton.
Woo!
Are you okay?
Cheering, dude.
Are you cheering? Are you cheering? Okay, you love League of Legends. Right. Oh, dearie me. Either way, Rise is locked in for Glory, which is another new champion that Glory has played this season, continuing his trend of expanding his champion pool. And this means that there's a lot of roam potential as well for Team Wales if they do want to look for engages and plays on the side lanes.
Now, I would like to make at least a slight referendum to what you just said, which is that while this splits, Glory has not played any Rise. I'm pretty sure that he hasn't played Rise. I think he has played a game of Rise. I could be wrong about that.
Webble. Forget about the Rise for now. We've got a Kled mid locked in.
Is it Kled mid or is it Gwen mid?
Kled mid.
It's Kled mid. Kled mid makes a lot more sense. Anyway, just to clear up that point, Glory has played the Rise is his favorite champion. He's played it 32 times. He's most played champion. So saying that it's a new champion is not true in the slightest. So Milky once again taking L's as usual.
Dude, I brought up the
unfathomably common Milky L. Sorry. All right, my bad. Anyway, yes, the more interesting piece of this is, of course, the Kled that's going into the mid lane. This champion, I've seen it a handful of times. This was really popular like last season and the season before into the mid lane, but it does a bunch of good things. Your ultimate disrupts Rise, which means that you can combo break. It's really, really difficult to try to like full combo like through every single spell and delay it so that you can actually hit Kled once he's dismounted. You have a good amount of weight clear, especially if you go for Tiamat item, if you go for one of the two items. And your roam potential matches that of Rise because your ultimate is on a pretty similar cooldown, and while it doesn't take an entire team, it does mean that you can kind of match wherever Rise is attempting to go on the map. It's a lot more aggressive a pick, and I'm really curious to see how it is piloted here by Froggy, because it's a unique one for sure.
So, do you think Froggy has a game on Kled?
Do I think that Froggy has
in his career? Yeah.
In his career?
Yeah, in his career.
I would take a wild guess that yes, he's got a game on Kled in his career.
I am pretty sure that he has, so I'm just going to quickly check that. I've got another question for you as well. When you think of Jax, and when you think of Jax players in the VCS, who's the first person who comes to your mind?
Who is the first one that comes to mind?
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm trying to think of his name. I do not remember his name off the top of my head, and it's crushing me right now. Not Ryuk. He's the Renekton player. What are you talking about? No.
I always remember Ryuk for Jax. I don't know why. He played lots of Jax that one. Along with Renekton.
He only played Renekton. No, Nagia's probably the one that currently comes to mind for Jax. More than anything else. No, I cannot remember what the guy's name is, but there's somebody who was a really big Jax player back in the day. But Nagia's the one that comes to mind right now. Pun is also a Jax one trick as well. So like Pun also comes to mind as well. That's just a thought.
Okay, I just checked. Ryuk did play. He played 18 games of Renekton, 17 games of Gnar, 7 games of Jax. And considering Jax was not a meta pick at the time, that was a lot of Jax games. But anyway, going to the game at hand, we do have this Rise against Kled matchup. And I want you to talk me through it, Rebel.
Yeah. Okay, so first off, as an anecdote, by the way, 2020 spring, 2 games of Kled mid lane for Froggy, just as a forewarning. So this has been played previously, just as
Wait, he's only got 1 game on Kled?
No, he's got 2 games on Kled.
You sure about that?
Yes, I am.
No, I've just
you're
checked Kled's stats.
taking-
He has what it says on GameOfLegends.gg, 1 game of Kled, 0% win rate for Froggy, all time.
Wrong.
Well, I don't know what you're looking at.
Better than what you're looking at. Continue taking L's today, Mr. Milken.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay. Anyway, yes, Froggy's played this before. He's familiar. He played it in control mages because it is an incredibly aggressive pick. You can attack things. It's difficult to kind of trade into. Even when you've got range advantage, it isn't always the greatest thing in the world because you can always get remounted and then you gain basically half of your health bar back. Ooh, back
Good
bottom
dredge line
lane.
onto Shogun, but Vit is taking a lot of damage here from Taki, who's continuing to throw out autos after autos, and now B taking the brunt of the damage from the double range Saigon Buffalo bot lane. Heal and a barrier, though, used by Saigon Buffalo.
Yes, and the summoner spell only the ignite burn, so no cleanse from Vit, flash from Vit. Health bar or health potions being burnt on both of them. In fact, you might have to burn 3, all of them on Vit here, just to recover from all of that. But they do get the summoner spells. But it is, again, the double range bot lane being leveraged into massive advantage, which has been a massive tool that has been used inside of the Saigon Buffalo wins. So that it's something you still have to pay attention to. Again, giving Taki away some of these champions has just been a death sentence for a lot of your laning phases.
And now Guri invading into Killer Queen as a jungler, saying, look, I've got so much pressure from my bottom lane, so much priority, you cannot fight me in this 1v1, and just stepping into Killer Queen's blue buff now.
Yeah, you can walk over really quickly. It's still level 1 for being Vit. Taki, as well as Shogun, could step over here, although Guri, I don't think, wants to get in too much of an entanglement here with Killer Queen, if at all possible. So, might just have to bounce, which would be a little bit of waste of time. Guri, sunk cost fallacy. He's going to hang around for at least a little bit longer, or at least force Killer Queen to step away for a minute. Froggy.
He ain't bouncing. The only thing bouncing are these spell fluxes from Glory, but even that can't bounce because there are no minions around Froggy, who will just push Glory out, and now a jungler's duking it out. Glory could flash over the wall, but he's got no real mana here. Killer Queen doesn't even want to duke it out. Froggy now pushes forward, picks up first blood on the Kled mid.
Again, that's the benefit of the Kled, is that, like, even when you're dismounted, you're relatively threatening, especially when Glory runs out of mana. You can't really cast spells, can't blitz down the health bar of the remaining. You burn the ignite, you burn the fire, and Killer Queen's dead.
Yeah, goodbye
That's
Killer
trade,
Queen, goodbye Guri. I think that's a trade that Team Wells will happily take.
Yeah, but they don't like this, which is the double marksman coming in and making sure that they're going to punish on the other way through. Also, Hosmet died, by the way, in the back line. So we were talking about Nagia being one of our famous Jax players. Here he is, popping off in the top lane, already getting a solo bolo up against the Gwen in the top side.
Who knows which way this game is going. 2 kills for both teams at 4 minutes in, and the gold is dead even. Glory, though, despite having given a kill over to Froggy, or Froggy taking a kill from Glory, does have a very comfortable CS lead, as we get to see how exactly Nagia got this kill onto Hosmet.
Okay, yeah, Hosmet is he's something else, man. He went the exact opposite direction. I think he was trying to fake out Nagia, and it just did not work in the same. That was a gambit if I've ever seen one, and it was a failed gambit if I've ever seen one before in my life from Hosmet, unfortunately. So, getting torched a little bit. Out of fairness, Hosmet did not go for Ghost. He did not go for Flash. He went for Ignite and Teleport, which isn't uncommon, but against the Jax, that means you do have to be a little bit careful because he's got 2 different kind of movement closing abilities between the Flash and between the Qs. So you have to be a little bit cautious, knowing that that is a possibility to jump in with.
First strike of the game is up for the taking, and Glory now has a tier. He has a mana crystal, which just means that he has a little bit more presence in lane, is able to clear and push waves in, and then roam around to objectives such as this Ocean Drake.
Absolutely. The early kind of wave clear advantage coming through from Glory. Glory's just going to farm up to the best of his abilities. You got to see more activity from Froggy to be able to kind of get out and about and to be able to respond to a lot of this. So that's something. The other thing is, I wonder if it is going to be a Titanic Rush. That used to be how Kled worked. I don't know that it's still the case in like the modern version of Kled mid, because this champion doesn't get played all that much in the mid lane for a number of reasons. I know when Heartsteel was super good, Heartsteel was actually really good on play because you could constantly proc it against whatever enemy you had. And so you could do like a Heartsteel Titanic and become an absolute beast with like 8k health and still do a bunch of damage too. I don't think that's how this is going to go for Froggy. I have to imagine it's going to be more damage than anything else instead of just going for pure health stacking.
Vit, just looking a little bit healthier than Shogun right now, is down at 20 CS. Good dredge line, but Guri is here. Can they get the damage out onto Shogun quickly enough? Killer Queen is slowly making his way down. They get the root onto Guri, and here comes Killer Queen The Saigon Buffalo have already been able to back off,
Oh.
as now Nagir is the one under threat from Hazmed. However, Nagir still has ult, and Hazmed has used his. Will be able to land a counter-strike underneath the Hallowed Mist. And Nagir does survive, so does Hazmed. Both top laners very low.
And it's actually interesting because, okay, never mind. We're getting a bit of action. This might be a run. Okay, both of them were just kind of startled there for a second as they both ran into each other in the Dragon Pit and just bounced immediately. Back to mid lane.
And this time, Froggy will be able to land a bear trap on a rope onto Glory. Be just hovering around, so no extra aggression from Froggy in the mid lane.
So big things that happened, just to point again, a little bit of action towards the bottom side just to try to break loose a little bit of something for both Shogun and Taki, and then also for Vit and B, and everything kind of gets neutralized out. Top lane, the interesting part of that 1v1 was that Saigon, Hazmed specifically, if he autos once or twice and is able to get some Q stacks, probably just executes Nigia. The problem is he wasn't able to auto attack because of the counter strike. So while he was trying to dodge out on the stun by being far enough away and utilizing the W to space away from Nigia, he couldn't auto attack, and so he couldn't you that actually did any damage, which is, I think, the big issue there. That Hazmed was so close to being able to pull a 1v1 kill against Nigia as Nigia ran back in. But again, denying those auto attacks to be able to charge that Q meant that there was no way for Hazmed to actually get enough damage to threaten Nigia's life. So both of them just had to walk away from that as well.
And Saigon Buffalo have found a window now to start and secure this first Drake of the game, just like they did in Game 2, and I want to say maybe Game 1 as well. All the while, though, Glory just bullying Froggy in this mid lane, now has a 25 CS lead, which more than compensates for that single kill that Froggy has.
Very easily. This is part of the benefit of having Ryze, is Ryze just has some of the best wave control in the entire game for any mage. It's really difficult to deal with, especially now that like the Catalyst and the tier is done. The mana sustain is really high. The health sustain even is really high for Glory as long as he continues capping. So it's a great position. The Ryze has much better control of the laning phase until, again, if it ends up being, it is a serrated Dirk as opposed to anything else coming through from Froggy, so really wants to put some additional damage out. And outside of that, again, I was wondering if the Tiamat would come out early just so you have a bit more wave pressure to deal with here, but it's not going to be, that's not going to be the case. So it should just be Glory kind of controlling the next 3 to 4 minutes very easily, if not, the foreseeable future inside the mid lane, because there's not much to do. A nice flash from B to get away from that ultimate. See, that's how it's done.
Glory sidestepping very nicely the enchanted crystal arrow. While Saigon Buffalo were able to get the Drake on the bottom side of the map, Team Wales were able to find a window to secure the Rift Herald. And where would you like to see that Rift Herald being dropped? Because right now I'm looking primarily towards Nigia on this Jax.
Yeah, Nigia seems like a solid option, especially with like 3 melee champions that all auto attack. Getting a Jax up and ready inside of a game means that you have quite a bit more interaction than normal that the Jax would have. If you have a standard mage in the mid lane, if you've got like a tank or something, Jax probably isn't going crazy with interaction in a game like this, so you don't need to get ahead.
B flashing forward. Guri is here, but so is Killer Queen. And Vit just gets absolutely eviscerated. Guri locked down, but B is going to get taken down before Guri even gets into any trouble whatsoever. Piercing arrow will chunk Killer Queen down, and Saigon Buffalo get 2 kills.
And this I have, like, Guri has played a lot better of a counter-ganking strategy over the course of this game than what we've seen previously. The Queen has the support of Glory, but I don't think that's enough for that large coming down this bottom side. As once again, it's Shogun and Taki kind of popping off in this laning phase, using the double marksman. This is actually really cool because Taki was like sort of covering for Shogun, and they had to pick a million different options to go for. And during all that little mess of chaos, Guri just kind of flashes out of the brush and insta executes the marksman, and they just lose the fight on the spot, and they barely even realize it. So props to Guri, once again, finding a solid play. This, again, the mechanics aren't like insane. Again, he's not insecting, he's not making these incredible plays happen, but he's using his kind of map awareness really effectively in this to make a positive impact for Saigon Buffalo.
Rebel, this is the VCS. We ain't got no time for these clever macro plays. We just want to see a flashy.
This is exactly why Ikigai got pushed out, because Ikigai was the same way and played the map so much smarter than other junglers, and everybody else was like, no hands, no Ikigai. It's the same thing, man. Like let him cook, bro. Let him cook.
To be fair, that's also what Levi's been doing recently. As Taki now, Realm Warp coming through, B looking for a potential play. 2 members in the Realm Warp. V over the wall could flash in for the play. Shogun is showing up as well. Taki will get taken down. Killer Queen finds the first kill. Vit over the wall with the Fest of the Storm. Now looks for Froggy, who fails to flash over the wall. Froggy is going to fall. Glory from the side. Guri not going to be able to land the Sonic Wave as one goes the way of Shogun, finding a kill with a piercing arrow over the wall, and Shogun could maybe look for more dredge lines. Not going to land. Glory solo. Glory, though, will survive, and overall it is 3 kills for 1 for Team Wales.
Shogun was remarkably close to actually finding kills there.
Maybe it's going to be 4 for 1. Killer Queen over the wall, feeling himself. This is the Killer Queen we know and love.
That's the Killer Queen I've been waiting to actually see over the course of the entire game. This was decently well played, actually. I like the way that Froggy kind of covered for Taki to start with, and then B picking the right ultimate target to make sure that the Ashe was pulled out of the fight ahead of time. And this is where, like, again, Shogun is so close to actually cleaning up this fight. He has to wait for cooldowns, which is really unfortunate, but actually does a really good job of just dropping additional damage. Guri also with, actually, he had the Dragon's Rage kick. Why did he not kick as soon as he had the angle to kick Killer Queen into Glory and B? I'm so confused. I don't know if he just didn't have an angle, if he was worried a flash would come through, but I feel like if you kick through all of them, one more arrow from Shogun probably picks up like 2 additional kills, and instead you end up losing your life. You give it over to Killer Queen, and Killer Queen continues cleaning up, which gives an avenue now back for Team Wales as their Viego is fed.
Yeah, and that's what happens. Killer Queen gets a kill onto Guri. He gets the Lee Sin, his best jungle champion, and that's when he really starts popping off. That's why they picked the Viego, because Killer Queen wanted the Lee Sin all along. Rift Herald dropped in the mid lane, so make some power plates will go into Glory's pockets.
Okay. A little bit of damage. And this is where I kind of wanted the Rift Herald to go in the first place. I think we kind of haven't had a chance to talk about it since you brought it up, because they've been so busy with everything else that's been going on around the map. Hazmed versus Nagia. Here we go. Ultimates dropped.
Both ultimates have been used. A lot of damage from the needle work, but they'll both kind of just peace out and mutually agree that it was a draw.
Okay, Dragon number 2 right now being controlled. It should be Wales. Oh, wait. Ashe. Okay, yeah, they're not going to capitalize on it. No, yeah, they're not going to
land on B. Froggy could look to, dive in onto this player on the bottom side of a dredge line.
Really?
How does that land onto Taki? And I really like the depth charge. Will it find the knock up onto Guri? B absolutely smurfing on the Nautilus.
Oh, okay. Taki is just trying to...
There's no way out for Taki here. He is gone.
Gracious. I can appreciate that Taki tried to make the little micro happen, but it is just not going to be the case. Instead, Team Wales take a very convincing lead as a result of that play right there. They lose 2 more members. They're going to lose a couple of plates here on bottom side, most likely, if they don't just push off Shogun and actually buy a lot more. That combined with the extra dragon that they've grabbed up gives them a really sizable advantage to work with now. Your Zaya's in a good place in this game, despite kind of losing during the laning phase. It's picked up a lot more as the skirmishing is picked up. You've also got Killer Queen in an amazing position. Rise is slowly collecting enough gold to be really menacing in this game as well.
Froggy. Nice ult.
The game running for Vit, I think. They could close the turret. In fact, actually, Froggy is going to grab the turret as long as he doesn't die to tower aggro, but that is at least something that they're getting, because I believe that's first tower of the game they're going to grab up here on the bottom side for Froggy to get him a bit of gold back.
Still, though, down in gold relative to Glory, who is 30 CS ahead, which is the equivalent of about 600 gold, which I think evens out against the kill and first tower gold.
Yeah, I mean, he got 450 right there, so that bridges quite a bit, and then the additional kill and the additional assist is, I guess it's just an additional kill more than anything else. So, yeah, they're probably about even in gold, relatively speaking, in terms of effective itemization as well. Like, we haven't gotten to a completed item yet for Froggy. It's going to be a minute for Glory, actually. Like, Rod of Ages is stacking 7 minutes from now. It's going to be an absolute beast item. There's the Stride Breaker. That's what I was waiting for. So now, Froggy needs to start kind of being the big kind of driver for fights, because now you throw the ultimate in, you hit people with Stride Breaker, and there's a very real possibility you're going to be slowed and end up being brought down. You need to deliver Shogun and Taki as well, because they're a good amount of the damage that you have kind of behind you at the moment too. So you do have to be cautious about that, as putting your marksman in harm's way versus getting the damage out of them that you need to win fights.
Team Wales now pushing in the mid lane. They're looking for their first tower of the game. With 4 members pushing forward, Saigon Buffalo are going to have to retreat, and Vit very strong right now with the Gale Force. Chains of Corruption on top of the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, but Glory won't get chunked too low down. Team Wales will take the tower, and Team Wales will make their retreat.
Yeah, closed off pretty well. 4 members around Glory. There was no way that there was ever going to be anything to do against Glory right there, especially with the tower going down. There wasn't much to be had. So not super active. Saigon being down 2,000 gold is a really good advantage. Team Whale able to take it. They still have Rift Herald as well. They've got the second one where Shirley is going to be able to do some additional damage to set up the remainder of the map. Again, Nagia is perfectly fine, just kind of chilling in the side lane. So you're able to throw it into, in my opinion, I think you go bot with Ryze. You just teleport down there as fast as possible, and you try to throw it and break that bottom tower so you can get even more gold, get Ryze into a position where Seraphs is done, and you can really start getting the late game itemization.
Team Wells can just continue waiting to get some more items, particularly on Glory. That Rod of the Age is completed. 60 or so stacks away from having his tier completed, which will be going towards, oh my god, I'm forgetting names, Seraph's Embrace. Or is it Archangel Staff before it upgrades?
I think it's Seraph's before upgrades and then becomes Archangels.
Ah.
Yeah,
I
could be wrong. It might be backwards, but...
Bit of a lane swap as well. Glory now. Oh no, did you see that overload?
Yeah, that's fine.
Glory being caught out by Harsmith. He just flash into the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Realm Warp being used, cancelled. As Glory will fall. Killer Queen now on the run, but Guri showing up. Good flash from Killer Queen out of the Sonic Wave. But here comes the rest of the Goon Squad. And Shogun will land the Chains of Corruption. 2 kills for Saigon Buffalo. And a shutdown for Shogun.
Now, where did that come from? Saigon Buffalo. These are all 5 members in the top lane, multiple ultimates, and they do pick up 2 big kills. They're going to get a turret off of it. Like, it is a decent gold exchange, especially because bottom tower and mid tower are already broken, so no tower pressure really coming through from the side of Team Wales. It looks like they're shifting into bot trying to find something. This was sexy right here. But did Glory try to flash over the wall, and that's why he shorted it? I feel like you get a little further with your flash, one way or another. And shorting. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel like he definitely didn't get the all out of the flash that he needed right there. And funny enough, Froggy, actually, it's not even the threat of Froggy, it's the threat of the Varus behind him with the Chains of Corruption that ends up being the demise of Killer Queen at the end of that play. So a decent amount of gold picked up. The gold lead now reduced to 1,000. They get a good amount into Gwen because the kill.
Taki has been caught. The Death Brush works beautifully for Team Wales. They have to be careful that they don't get caught by anyone else. Never mind, I think they want to find Guri here. Just zone him away from his Raptors, and Team Wales will pull a bit of gold back towards themselves.
You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, Milky, I think I have to change my statement. I'm pretty sure it's Archangels and it turns into Seraph's Embrace. I think it's Archangels first. Okay, I'm convinced of that.
That's
now.
what I thought it was initially.
Whether it's wrong or not, that's what I'm convinced of. What it is now.
One thing we know is that now the tower has fallen, and Team Wales are looking for the play. Snap, and down goes Guri. And sure, Nagia is going to fall as well, but Team Wales still looking.
That ultimate!
So much damage out from Osmond and the Needlework. It's a triple kill for the Saigon Buffalo top laner. Bladecaller will find the lockdown flash forward, piercing arrow auto, and Shogun gets another shutdown.
Okay. Osmond heard me talking shit after game 1. He was like, yo, hey, but my Sejuani AP top is fair, bro. Don't at me. And he had popped off on Gwen. Why not just play Gwen in the first game, homie? Like, what are you picking AP Sejuani for? You've got an AP Sejuani right here. Look at him rip through this team. There's so much through damage. Guri has kick. You got arrow. When you're clustered like this, look how easy it is for Gwen to just pop off. Watch this third one right here. Boom. It will win the fight. 3 members erased, Milky. Or anything else. And then I love this little trick from Shogun because he's charging an arrow, but it flash cues early because you're not going to be expecting to have to like dodge the arrow that quickly, and then the auto comes through, which is a cute little trick from Shogun to have tricked Vit into not being able to dodge at the right time, which is kind of cool. That gets them another dragon, evens up the gold advantage. That is a huge dub for Saigon Buffalo, who somehow have dug themselves out of a bad position. It seems like usually they fall victim to these mid games and end up losing a game slowly, but this time they're fighting back.
4-1 now for Harsmed on the Gwen. Has completed the Shadow Flame as well. And as you mentioned, right, Gwen is literally just an AP Sejuani. I don't know how you came to that conclusion.
I didn't say that. I did not say that.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
No.
I've got to go back and clip it because you definitely said that.
If I said it, then it's not how I meant it. Because what I meant it to say is, why are you playing AP Sejuani when Gwen exists? Like,
right, okay.
Like, why would you play that? Like, you've got the damage with the Gwen. Unless you're looking for the hard CC. But, like, even then, it's just, like, it feels like the way he was playing that Sejuani was more like an AP like version of, or like a Gwen that just has CC instead of anything else. So why not just play the Gwen because you got more damage anyway? Which again, you call me wrong for talking trash on Hosmed saying he's been having a bad split, because he has. But he has proved us wrong by being one of the better players here inside of these games for the last two sets here against Wales with his Gwen pick.
Now, let's not forget, Wales are still getting stronger and stronger. 2 items completed for Glory. Nagia just on 1. So, Hosmed is going to be a much bigger threat than this Jax, at least for the foreseeable future. Surprisingly.
Yeah,
considering that Nagia had a really good start to this game.
Yeah, he solo killed Hosmed and then was up a decent amount of farm during the laning phase. It's just that Hosmed in teamfights, the Gwen gets so much value for being able to hit multiple targets. You can see the snipper clips alongside the threads are just doing so much to the side of Team Wales. And again, you think about like, you've got like Varus damage to worry about, you got like Ashe Imperial Mandate, that on top of like a big kick. You can legitimately kill an entire team with like one solid set of abilities from Saigon Buffalo. A little difficult to try to line up properly, but not impossible by any sense whatsoever.
And then the other person to watch out for is that 2 items now completed on this Xayah, but Shogun is on 3 items. Almost has the Manamune completed into the Muramana. Yeah, 360. And
yes.
He does have that. He's going to hurt a lot. And that's kind of Varus power spike on those 3 items.
Yeah, then you get additional kind of flat armor or a percentage armor penetration, and then it doesn't even matter if you're tank more than anything else. So that's another big one. I'm keeping my eye on Glory because again, this is somebody who has clutched on this champion in the past, been able to full carry games. Before he was on Team Wales, he was on teams that were less successful and was able to find good success on the Rise pick anyway, being just a massive carry for the team. Already on 2 completed items with the Seraphs and with the Rod of Ages now fully stacked, is getting into later game Rise type territory. You're on level 15 already compared to everybody else. Like right now it's 14 for Hosmed, who's been going crazy, but you're ahead. You're going to hit level 16, get your 3rd tier of ultimate. You're going to be able to get that 3rd Q upgrade
Enchanted Crystal Arrow lands. Shogun is going to be in range for the Chains of Corruption, and indeed does land. Hosmed though taking so much damage to the gear, almost able to get the kill, but in the end Hosmed will claim a victory with Taki and Shogun for assistance.
He thought he would get the kill, but unfortunately there were reinforcements. So, not only does Nagia get Ashe Arrowed and Chains of Corruption in the midst of all of that, still almost got the kill against Hosmed, and Hosmed had to pop ultimate. In fact, if our team was, I would have been looking at Baron and being like, you know what, they're down like 3 massive ultimates. We might actually be able to take this fight, but I don't think they're quite sure enough. If this were like 3 item Rust, 3 item Vago, I would say they should have just jumped on it immediately. Instead, it's Buffalo made their way up the map and are now actually looking at minimum for setup, probably jump for setup, because it seems like Shogun is going to be back in for a second. You can tell they were a little bit pressed about that. Potential was there at the moment.
Well, Baron is up for the taking, but Saigon Buffalo don't think that they have a good window to attempt to secure it, so they're probably just going to wait half a minute, look to play for the Drake, which will be their sole point.
Yeah, be number 3, second Mountain Dragon is a team that's got a Gwen, a team that's got a Clay. They can live forever in the backline if they have enough kind of, especially look at Xayah's build. Xayah has gone for not Kraken there, so there's no true damage. Did go for Navori, but doesn't have penetration of any kind, and it's gone for Maw because you need it, because Gwen is absolutely devastating your health bar. No penetration. No penetration on Rise. Didn't go for Sork Shoes, instead went for Lucidities. That's pretty common. Hasn't had penetration, probably goes for Rabadon's next. That means, again, no way to shred resistances. The best way you got it for AD is this Black Cleaver coming through from Killer Queen. Not going to access everybody. Not going to rip through everybody's armor, most likely. So I think this Mountain Drake is going to be a really, really big point of contest, especially the Soul Point when Team Whale is around for the next one. It doesn't look like they're quite in position to make this happen unless Glory decides to TP or give this one up. The Soul Point's got to be contested. You cannot give them a shield and triple stack Mountain Drakes, because otherwise they might just be too tanky for you to kill.
Glory did eventually teleport, but I don't see why, because the Drake had already been secured. He could have stayed on the top side of the map, maybe even been able to pick up the top lane in a tower.
See, I also...
Glory, he's fast, but now he's in the Realm Warp. He's already a way out. No, he's kicked out of the Realm Warp, and now he's stuck in the Baron Pit. The rest of Team Wales are making their way over to try to keep Glory alive. He's all by himself in the Baron Pit. There's nothing that he can do, and Baron is just going to kill him. And Glory just has to sit in the Baron Pit and die.
They actually just let Baron kill him. That's really funny. Yeah, I don't know anything about what that happened was he goes to look from Glory. Now they got to fight a 4v5 around this Baron. The best thing to go for is to try to drive him off. There are ultimates down from Saigon Buffalo. Oh, B, you're so close.
Killer Queen going in, looking for Froggy, not yet dismounted. Counter-Strike already charged up by Nagia, can't find a way in. Flash from Taki. Baron down to 3,000 health. Killer Queen's not going to be able to find any way into the pit, and Team Wells are going to be forced to retreat.
Yeah, okay. That sequence from Glory was disastrous. He went from top lane where he had this massive minion push into top inner tower to teleporting into mid lane. Instead of realm warping into mid lane, teleporting into mid lane to run back up into Baron River to get caught out by Ash Arrow, which he forced his flash, so that means he was stuck, and then getting picked out of his own ultimate so that he couldn't actually get out of the Baron pit and literally got trapped in the back of the Baron pit. And because of that one sequence of events, that one mess up, this play on Team Wells, they lose a lot of pressure on the Baron buff. They lose the Baron buff. They lose 2,000 gold worth of advantage, 1,500 gold worth of advantage. Not to mention the turrets that are pretty good in lane due to the Baron buff being up. And it's easily going to allow Saigon Buffalo to set up these waves so that they can look for the soul a lot easier than they would have otherwise. That's so much damage that just got dealt self-inflicted by Team Wales mid laner.
I guess one silver lining for Team Wells is that the Baron buff will end about a minute before the Mountain Drake does spawn, so might give them a chance to just get waves into a slightly better situation before they have to fight for what would otherwise be Saigon Buffalo's Mountain Soul. Right now you can see Nagia trying to fight against this Baron empowered wave, and thankfully for him, eventually Froggy moves away. Now Killer Queen finds Froggy, ends up cancelling the charge, and the rest of Team Wales are making their way over. Froggy already down on to half health. Can B land the dredge line? He can indeed, but Froggy with a pocket pistol over the Drake wall and out to safety.
Oh, Ash Arrow? Oh, okay, Glory. Very nearly. Oh, he got caught. No, never mind.
Did get. Guri could have looked to go in and gone for the Lee Sin insect, but decides against it, and Saigon Buffalo will just go back to pushing waves.
Yes, instead they're going to work up mid lane. Bottom lane is, actually they're not going to push up. I do wonder if they're going to try to make just a hard push up mid lane with Froggy here, which could make some sense because there's a number of members that are missing health bars, going to have a difficulty kind of dealing with. Now Froggy can kind of shatter them to make sure there's nobody that can come in from behind. You see Killer Queen attempting some around, but that's 2 full turrets now for the side of Saigon Buffalo. They have a minute and a half left, and only got about 45 seconds. They can deliver one more wave up lane if they really want to. I don't think they actually do. What are they doing? They're wrapping around in the jungle looking for just some vision control top side. Oh, that's okay. Now I'm understanding what they're doing.
John Crystal Arrow doesn't land onto Vit, who is on the run. Has to be careful of the Chains of Corruption. Out comes the Featherstorm, flashes away and out to safety, but he's tagged. Cleanse to regain his movement speed, and he will be able to survive. Killer Queen needs to be careful as well. Will be able to wrap his way back to safety. And the Gears just split pushing this entire time. Realm Warp coming through now from Team Wells as they are attempting to cancel backs and buy as much time as Nagia as possible, and now he's trying to wrap around behind Saigon Buffalo. So much damage from the piercing arrow onto Killer Queen, and Team Wells will not be able to find a window to engage.
Biggest thing is I really appreciate Team Wales. They understood the kind of concept that we were establishing earlier with the Baron buff, saying, okay, if they've got Baron buff up until a minute before, when the dragon on, they're going to push up mid lane, they're going to push up bot lane. About a minute and a half beforehand, they're going to drop wards, they're going to back, the Baron buff's going to fall off. Yes, they'll be able to push waves back out to middle, but they're not going to be able to contest the river vision, or they're going to have to dump the waves, and they're going to have to walk into to contest the vision, try to get to the river. In this case, they actually jumped the timer and just started fighting, and they said, okay, we didn't really lose anybody, didn't lose a ton of cooldown, a lot of the Vit there, but yeah, he usually doesn't click in anyway, so it doesn't matter that his safety is gone for the most part. And that means that Team Wales, they actually have a legitimate contestable position for this Mountain Soul that's popping up in 15 seconds. They've got a pathway in. I gotta see Glory get here as fast as possible. Gotta see Nagia here as fast as possible. They're getting their last few items in before that soul point fight, because it's such a pivotal kind of point in this game to be able to take away the Mountain Drake from Saigon Buffalo to make sure the soul point does not go over. Although they just gave one up mid lane.
Yeah, and Hosmer's just going to push in the mid lane while the Drake is being started to go out. Worse for Saigon Buffalo, they're going to be able to get an inhibitor. Crucially for Team Wales, they are going to be able to get the Drake and deny Soul Point away from Saigon Buffalo. But can Team Wales actually back now? Because otherwise, Hosmer is just going to be ending the game. I think Nagia's trying to find a window so that he can back because he teleported in. There's no TPs available for the side of a Team Wales. It's all going to be on Nagia. And Saigon Buffalo cannot find Nagia. They cannot end the back realm up now coming through. Vit, though, left on his own because he's in the air. He can't take the realm up. Nagia is going to be able to get the kill onto Hosman. Surely jumping for Nagia is so low. Nagia is still alive. But Hosman comes out of stasis, gets the kill onto Nagia. So while Team Wales are able to get the Drake, Saigon Buffalo get 2 kills for 1.
They get 2 kills for 1. The Dragon does go to Team Wales, so they shut that out. But now mid lane inhibitor is down, which means that there is a massive attacking point when the Baron spawns in a minute's time. That's going to set up so much for Saigon Buffalo, because the mid inhibitor means that they have to put so much attention into it right now. They might just have to try to flip the Baron as well. Like, if they don't, then if Saigon gets the Baron buff, they crack the top tower, they probably crack another inhibitor, and they're able to set up for the next soul point. They're able to pull quite a bit more gold advantage. And notably, Saigon did almost kill like the second Nexus tower, but also had Rabadon's gold. So just backs and gets Rabadon. This all happened before the Rabadons got purchased. So like, if you thought that was a close fight, it's no longer close. That's just not going to happen again. The Rabadons has made him an absolute monster in this game now.
In fairness, Glory is very close to being able to pick up Rabadons. On his last back, he actually picked up a stopwatch. So
too.
He was a few hundred gold away, level 18 as well. Glory can't get... Actually, Glory can get a fair bit stronger because he can still complete his Rabadons, and he's got space for another item or so. There is the Rabadons completed, and now it's on Vit to get stronger. Got a Hex Drinker, he's got the Vampiric Scepter, probably looking for a Guardian's Angel or to complete the Bloodthirst next.
That is a junk drawer of garbage in Vit's inventory. That shit needs cleared out right now. There's no excuse to have a Vamp Scepter. I know he needs power of some kind, but if he doesn't have a pot running, then this is criminal. Like, legitimately,
no
so much power
time though for spring cleaning. It's time for a spring fight. B's going to be able to land a dredge line onto Froggy. Knocked down the Raptor flashes over the wall, still somehow alive. Sidestepping on the needlework, gets the knock up. Nagia over the wall, looking for the kill, and down goes Osman Squad. Team Wales can look for the fight. It's a 3-on-3. Taki, he pieces out over the wall, out to safety. What can Vit do with the Gale Force forward? Not going to be able to find the kill onto Guri, and out of state assist comes the Froggy. Team Wales will get 2 kills for 1.
Way too antsy was Hosbed right there. I think he wasted the ultimate. One of those massive kind of useful tools here for the side of Saigon Flow on somebody as a single member. It was like a support on the side. It was beat.
No way. Damage. He gets absolutely eviscerated. And the Enchanted Crystal Arrow lands onto Killer Queen, who is now on the run. Team Wales were on the front foot, but now on the back foot. Hail of Arrows, so much damage, and a slow as well. Does Guri go in? Of course he goes in! And down goes Team Wales. Featherstorm out from Vit. Blade Caller will do nothing, and the base is open for the taking for Saigon Buffalo. It's only B left standing, another 30 seconds before Nagia is up, and this is it. This is the final play. It looked like Team Wales had found a way back into the game, but Saigon Buffalo say absolutely not. They march on to the open nexus, and Saigon Buffalo will take down Team Wales 2-1.
In an absolutely incredible game, once again, from Saigon Buffalo. That double Archer bot lane coming in clutch for them to wrap up this series. Guri's Lee Sin is doing quite a bit of work inside of the last couple fights. It was scrappier than I wanted it to be. Yes, that early game didn't go how they wanted it. That last fight was touch and go for quite a bit of time. But in the end, Shogun and Taki come in clutch the way they have in so many games for the squad. There's a reason why they're world recognized. There's a reason why they're some of the most famous players now in the VCS. And came in clutch right there. If it were not for those two, it would have been a very, very tough go of it. That last fight would have gone very wrong. So I can appreciate incredibly heavily just how well that was. And what a big win for Saigon Buffalo. Again, now taking so many teams in the standings. I know that was the big joke. But again, we've expected Saigon Buffalo to do better this split than any other split. We thought this would have been the opening for them to take the #1 seed. And maybe now their early hiatus is done in the season, and they can actually get back to their winning ways.
I know we've got a lot of teams on 2 wins with 3 defeats in a very close middle part of the standings. That it's going to be such a crazy fight for those final spots in the playoffs. And yeah, a lot of damage from Shogun, and we were kind of critiquing Shogun a bit that he wasn't feeling very confident on the Xayah in game 1. On the Varus, though, absolutely no issues whatsoever.
No, yeah, when he's able to stay in a more defensive type positioning and still put out damage like this, you can see Shogun is still a top-level marksman, which is, again, if you're picking some of the aggressive stuff, if you're going for Zeri, if you're going for Xayah, and you have to stand forward, again, that was the stuff that Shogun became famous on. And while that's not living up to snuff right now, again, the Varus is absolutely doing so. When paired alongside an aggressive bot laner like Taki's had with the Ashe and some of the other picks they've grabbed this season, it has looked... insurmountable for other bot lanes to do anything against. So that Cosmin reasserting himself is a very dominant up against Nagia. Got to give a ton of props to this team because their veterans really stepped up today to be bigger kind of contributors. Guri had some really good performances, has done some really good things, but again, it was these kind of main contributors to the big team fights that I think really clutched up against Team Wales now.
Well, Sion Buffalo take the win against Team Wales. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up, Rebel?
What a week! I mean, tomorrow I think we close out. What do we have? We have GAN versus SPTC, and then we have Service versus Team Secret, all of which are solid games. But right now, what is it? Team Wales, Secret, Saigon Buffalo, and Team Flash are all currently sitting at 2-3, which is wild inside of the standings. Especially if it's tomorrow, because it could end up being that like SPTC, they lose to GAM, who's the number 1 seed, they could end up at 3-3, and then we get this crazy rank of 3-3 teams if enough teams end up winning out. So nothing but fun here for the rest of the split in VCS.
I hope someone just screenshotted your freeze frame, because that was a glorious screen freeze opportunity. Either way, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Rebel, for being such a wonderful sport in Discuss. And of course, to Spoods on the wonderful production.
We love Spoods.
We're going to take a break. Sadly, Elise did lose today. Spoods debuff, what can we say? But we'll be back tomorrow for 2 more VCS series. Stay tilt-proof on the Rift, and we'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.